Okay, Mike, we're in. Thank you very much for swinging by the studio.
Thanks for having me, Ryan. Good to be here.
So this is good. We don't need the headphones, but you got to keep the mic quite close. That's,
Got it.
that's
Yeah.
pretty perfect.
Okay.
And you feeling comfortable?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I feel like I'm slouching a little.
Nah, you can pop the seat up if you want, or
I guess the mic's at a good height. I pop this.
it's on a little loop. So if you want to lean back, you just bring it back, and if you want to pop in, you pop in. So you're good. So thanks for riding your motorcycle all the way up from Orange County. That's epic.
Yeah, motorcycle saved me a good half-hour traffic. So, and it's like a sport,
Because you can in California, you can ride in the diamond lane with the motorcycle, and then you can also lane split, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
what
that's fast.
It's like playing Frogger. Like you're just dodging and trying to stay alive.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I've done a ton of motorcycle riding, and I can honestly say the worst motorcycle riding that I have ever done has been in big cities, and it just drives me absolutely insane.
Yeah, when the lanes get like narrow, it gets sketchy, and then it's hot out, so you don't have the patience to sit there and wait. So you want to lane split.
Yeah,
and it's like bumping mirrors and stuff.
Terrible. I remember once coming into Mumbai, and this was on Tough Rides India, when my brother and I we rode motorcycles all the way, and we were filming. And so we had the support vehicle behind us, and the support vehicle was actually the one stuck in traffic. And we could actually probably squeeze by, but we didn't want to leave, because what if one of us got hit and we wanted to film it, or, something could happen, right? So we ended up just sitting with the support vehicle in traffic, and we could see our hotel in the distance, and it was 2 hours to go 3 miles.
No.
Yeah.
That's not fun. I'd rather be in the air-conditioned car, for sure. That will pay.
Yeah, those bastards.
I think
camera
guys in other states. Like I was in Vegas last weekend for the jiu-jitsu tournament, and once I hit Nevada, I think you're not allowed to. I was Googling it on the way there, and so I was just tortured, 'cause it was 110 degrees, and you can't lane split. So going through the strip and stuff, it was just torture. I was like, I would not have a motorcycle in Nevada.
You can't lane split in Las Vegas proper?
I don't think so.
Really?
Unless I was wrong. I was just a Google search, so
Okay.
I don't know for sure, but I was just kind of going with it.
Yeah.
And then when I saw no cops, then no stops,
So you were in Vegas for the jiu-jitsu world championship, or
the American Nationals.
okay?
Yeah.
And I mean, you went as an audience member? You were a competitor. Oh well, we got to get into that.
I got off the couch and went and competed. It's like,
I don't even do jiu-jitsu. I just got off the couch and entered.
never done it before. Entered the black belt.
Thought it'd be fun.
Yeah.
So how long have you been doing jiu-jitsu?
17 years.
Wow, that's no joke.
49, and I was like 32 or something when I started.
Was it out of fun, or was it like a little pre-midlife crisis? 32 is a little young for midlife crisis.
I think it was a little bit of that, though. It was a little bit of burnout. I think my business was kind of on cruise control. I had been pushing hard in my business for 10 years, and I was just getting out of shape, and I needed something, and I hit in the gym. I hated it. I'd always be looking at the clock, wishing it would end. And I always wanted to do jiu-jitsu because my brother was into it. And so I figured it was time, I started my family, I started my business. I needed something, an escape from the, I don't know, the push of marketing and all of that. I just needed I need to go somewhere where no one knew my name, and just do a sport and start over, and just
It's really important for people to hear that, right? Because it does take 10 years to establish yourself as an artist, as a because you're a photographer, right? And that, I mean, it did take 10 plus years to set yourself up. It takes forever.
Yeah, it was 10 solid years of pushing hard before I can feel like I can take a break even.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even a break. It was just pure burnout. I was kind of just over it, I was like, oh man, I don't know where to go from here. I don't know what to do. My employees are kind of running the show.
Mm-hmm.
So I just stepped down and started full-time jiu-jitsu.
That's
sort of
a good story. And now, but you actually competed in the black belt level. That's insane. Nationals.
Yeah. Well, it's IBJJF, which is like it's the biggest, kind of the most prestigious tournament, but it's masters level. You know, I'm 49, so I was competing in my age bracket. So there were some tough guys. The tournament was had like two guys in my bracket, or one guy in my bracket that was very known, at least amongst competitors. I didn't know who he was. Like, I really haven't been following. But you know, whenever you're in the bullpen and you start hearing like, oh, did you hear who's in your bracket? It's not a good thing. You know, you're just usually like, oh man, like, don't even tell me.
Oh.
So
it's like waking up and having like Duke, Kentucky, and North Carolina all in your bracket for the basketball. That's the only reference I can make where at least I played basketball. I know how that would feel.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like that. And so I ended up beating the guy, and so I beat the first guy, and then went to the finals. There was like, I think 4 guys in the bracket, so it was a pretty small bracket. But I beat the guy, and then I beat the first guy, and then that guy fought in the losers bracket, I guess. No, that guy had to fight the other guy who I was going to fight in the finals, and then he got beat. So the guy that I fought lost twice in a row, and then he told me, he's like, dude, you need to like, he was like, pull guard quick or something like that. And I was like, okay. So
he was giving you tips.
I was just intimidating me. I was just getting more and more scared, you know?
Yeah.
But I ended up submitting him, so it was cool.
You won.
Yeah, I won, yeah.
So you're the jiu-jitsu national champion in your age group.
Yeah, Masters 4. Masters 4, it's like the 45 and up bracket.
And this was just last weekend.
Yeah.
And now we're talking about it. That's epic. Well, congratulations. That's no small joke.
Thanks. Yeah, it was kind of a big deal, but I don't know. It doesn't feel like a big deal. Like, you have 2 fights and you're the national champion. It doesn't feel right. It's like, I'm sure there's some other dude sitting on his couch that could be me. So.
No, you got to spin it. It's like there were 16 people in my bracket, and like, yeah, I had to go for like 8 fights to get to the finals. Yeah. No one really knows how this shit works.
Well, I think when you get to my age, and also black belt, when you're at the black belt level, my age, I think there's just fewer competitors. People are doing life, you know, and I'm still hanging in there, just like having fun when I can.
It's good. Is there a group above you, like for 50s?
Yeah. It keeps going. It's Masters 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Oh, wow.
Like, you can compete till you're in your, I don't know, 70s, 80s.
Because I know one of my big heroes, Anthony Bourdain, who passed in 2018, like, he was a big jiu-jitsu guy, and he was in his 60s, and he was still crushing it.
Yeah.
I don't know if he ever entered that tournament in Vegas, but
he might have. Yeah. Because IBJJF is big. They travel around. They have them in like a lot of cities.
Oh.
So it's a legit tournament. The World is coming up. I wasn't going to do it, and then after I won the nationals, I was like, maybe.
If you're the U.S. champion, you got to do the Worlds.
Yeah. I don't know. It's like, doesn't feel like I belong still, but we'll see, you know.
And where is the World tournament?
Vegas, same place.
Oh, really? They just keep it all in-house?
These ones are usually in Vegas, I think, because it's kind of a international airport, and a lot of people fly in for them.
Yeah. And you can ride up.
Yeah, it was hot. I don't know if I'm going to do it again, because I rode my motorcycle there, and it was hot.
Yeah. 4 hours, right? 4.5.
Yeah, about 4.5, and then, you know, stopped for gas a couple times, and then when I was leaving, I stayed an extra night just so I could leave early in the morning because it was so hot. And I got up at like 5 o'clock and left, and then I was cold. I was like, what is going on?
How'd you get home on the motorcycle with your massive jiu-jitsu trophy? Don't they give you something like huge? Did you have to like strap it to the back like some baby?
Oh, they just give you a little medal. But after the tournament, I got on my bike in my gi with my 2 medals. I took bronze in open class too. So I had my 2 medals clanking around, and I was just cruising the strip in my gi with medals clanking around. I was like, why not? No one knows me here.
Yeah.
We're going to see these people again.
Yeah.
Like, who's this coot riding around in a gi?
Did you get a friend at least to get a shot of you?
No, I wish. I wish I had a photo.
Yeah.
And then I walked through the hotel lobby, and they were looking at me funny, and I was like, it was a good day. And I was like biting the gold. And the guy behind the counter actually trains jiu-jitsu. And he's like, no way, come here. It was kind of my little moment of like, got to brag a little.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it was fun.
Congratulations. That's no small joke, man. That's you got to be in serious fitness to even compete at that level.
Honestly, it's funny because I've competed a lot, you know, like through the belts and everything. And I used to think like it was, I don't know, if I won, I thought I was like somebody.
Mm-hmm.
But now I just realized that there's 1,000 people that didn't show up that could beat you in your division probably. So it's just luck of the draw a little bit who you get. I mean, I did get the top dude, and I fought him, so I feel good about that, and that's no joke. But I'm sure if he fought me 9 more times, he'd probably beat me.
Sure.
I probably just took him off guard. He didn't. He's like, who's this dude? I'd never heard his name. And
you surprised him.
Yeah, he underestimated me.
Yeah.
Just was a little too relaxed, and I caught him.
Yeah. That's epic though, man. You fucking
Yeah.
showed up and you crushed it.
Yeah, half the battle showing up for sure.
Almost all the battles showing up. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. The amount of people who just don't try is unbelievable.
it's I know. You just gotta. And honestly, like I don't feel it when I sign up for a jiu-jitsu tournament. The first question I asked myself was like, why did you do that? Like, what are you thinking? Like, why?
Why not?
It's pretty good, comfortable. You know,
Yeah.
it's a comfortable life. Why do you just make yourself uncomfortable? Like instantly, right when I click and purchase the ticket or whatever to sign up, I have to go to the bathroom. I get nervous. And it's could be months away. I get nervous, I have to go to the bathroom. I'm like, why are you doing this to yourself? You hate competing. You hate the whole build up, the adrenaline, even just like, I don't know. And
But then afterwards, you like the medals.
but then once in a while you become national champion. So it's like, heck, you know, like if I didn't sign up, I would never had that opportunity.
I had no idea I was speaking to the jiu-jitsu level 4 national champion.
It's just for
Masters 4. That's fucking cool. That's a nice little tangent that I wasn't expecting.
yeah. I was looking forward to sharing that, to be honest.
Well, let's look. I obviously wanted to talk to you a lot about your photography career. I spend a lot of time as a photographer. I love talking to photographers. I love understanding the passions and how they got their career going. But I love figuring out how you ended up as a photographer because it's not an obvious profession for most people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, where were you born? Like, let's go right
I was born right here in Southern California. I was born in Long Beach.
Okay.
And then grew up in Anaheim. Went to school at Cal State Fullerton. That was my college. And while I was going to Cal State Fullerton, I was actually going for electrical engineering. And I was like 4 years into electrical engineering, thinking that was what I was going to do. But at the same time, I was my side hustle, my job to kind of help pay the bills was photography, and I got into that just because I bought a camera. My buddy got me a part-time gig working for a company shooting like sports teams, like portraits of sports teams. Like we go to all the schools. And so I was just doing that as a side hustle, you know, paying the bills. And then I got another photography job. And what I started noticing while I was going to school was I was getting really bored. Like engineering was just not really my thing. Like, and it wasn't so much, I love the math. I'm very like, I love like, math is very satisfying to me because it's like kind of OCD or something. Like it's very satisfying to like figure out math problems because it's like black and white.
Mm-hmm.
And photography wasn't easy for me. Photography was like the creative side of photography wasn't easy. I was better at the technical side. But what I started noticing was that I was getting really bored with kind of the people in the departments. Like no one wanted to do group meetings. Like they didn't want to study together. So I was more social, and I would get really bored by myself when I was trying to study. I'd be super bored, and so I'd try to organize group studies and stuff, and no one wanted to do it. They're a bunch of loners, and so I was just like, man, is this like the industry I'm going to be in? I'm supposed to be a loner, and they're just going to put me at a desk in a cubicle somewhere forever.
Yeah,
that's going to be my life. And I started thinking about that, and then I was watching the owners of the companies, of the photography companies I was working for. This one dude, Pyle, I was shooting sort of sorority and fraternity formals for him, like on the weekends, like Friday, Saturday, we'd be at those like formals and setting up a backdrop, and there'd be a line of drunk people. And
yeah, I was just going to ask, how messy did that get?
Yeah, trying to keep people like, you'd pose this group shot and then you turn around, go back to your camera, and everyone would be wandering off like herding kittens, you know? Yeah. And I was just like, oh man, but Kyle and I had a blast together. Like he'd be in a booth next to me and he was the owner. And I just saw how happy he was doing what he was doing. And it was a very social gig. And he was making good money. I think he was pulling in like over 100K. I don't know if it's profit or gross, but he was he'd mentioned things like that to me. So I was just like, dang, like, and back then that was more than I'd probably be making as an engineer, even in my first 5-10 years.
Mm.
So I was like, I can have fun. Like it was kind of eye opening, you know, like it was outside of the box of what I grew up thinking. I thought I had to just get a job, work for the man. And, you know,
it's funny how no one tells you that there are other options out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like school is set up to brainwash you into thinking that you have to do it this way. There's a system, you have to stay in it. And if you go outside the norm, you're going to be a loser. You're going to, you know, you're going to fall on your face and just have to go back to the other thing.
And that fear of graduating university and not having a job, and everyone else like has a job, but then they hate their jobs, and then 10 years later they hate their lives. And you're like, why'd you put so much stress onto yourself to? I mean, I know a lot of people have student debt and stuff like that, and they need to work, and I understand that stress. but that desire of like not even knowing who you are and just jumping into the first job you can is
you don't know who you are. My high school counselor said, "You're good at math, do engineering," and I was like, okay. And I had no idea what engineering. I didn't even know what engineering was. I was doing electrical engineering. I didn't know what it was. My uncle finally told me after like 3 years of doing it. He's like, "You know, you're going to be in a cubicle, right? Because you're kind of a people person. You know, engineers are like the most boring people. They sign off on my plan." He's a builder, and he's like, "They sign off on my plans. That's all they do." I'm like, "They don't make stuff. They don't like invent things. They don't like. They're not hands on." He's like, "No, they just look at plans and sign off on them." I was like, "Ew," and I didn't know. My counselor didn't tell me that. So why do people think they're going to go into college, right, and do 4 years of the right thing? Like, how do you even know what you're going to be interested in?
It's true. I mean, like to make a decision like that at 18 and be like, that's going to be my life is terrifying.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, it's a lot of trust in your high school counselor for sure.
High school counselors are the worst. But okay, did your mother or father have any interest in the arts or photography? Like what was high school like? Did you ever pick up a camera in high school?
No. And I remember the closest I got to a camera was I asked for one for Christmas one year.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, like we didn't have a lot of money. We're kind of middle class and lower middle class. And so my parents pawned that off onto like one of my siblings. So like, "Oh, it's a camera. You know, it's cheap." And I was thinking like a real camera, but they were
like a proper SLR.
I was thinking, like a camera, like an SLR. And they were thinking like when you're checking out the grocery store, like the one that's hanging on the little thing.
Yeah,
it's like film,
Yeah, a little point and shoot.
Little point and shoot. Yeah. Right? And so that's what I got for Christmas from my sister, I think. And it was, God bless her, it was she bought it with her own money and everything, but that's not what I was thinking. That's the closest I got to like having a camera, and I shot with it and I took photos, but it wasn't what I was thinking. The influence I had early on was my mom's friend Sharon. Growing up, she would take photos of us, and I didn't know her well. She was more like my mom's friend, and then she kind of disappeared. And so I just remember looking at the photographs, like digging through my parents' like little shoebox and pulling out photos. And some of the photos stood out, like they were legit, like shallow depth of field. I was like, "Whoa, these look good." And my mom was always like, "Sharon took that."
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember admiring Sharon because I had an appreciation for her work. Like it just looked really like real life. Like the photos looked like real life versus there was no flash. It was like very photojournalistic, but it was like good moments, and the quality of it just stood out.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the camera that I wanted. I wanted a camera that could do that. And those little point shoot cameras, they don't have shallow depth of field. They're just like everything's sharp.
Mm-hmm.
So I never got the photos. I was like, man, I suck, like what's going on? And I always wanted a good camera,
You got to spend $1,000 at least. Yeah.
So I finally did.
Okay.
I finally bought my first camera.
What was your first camera?
It was a Nikon N70.
I remember those.
You remember those?
Yeah, yeah. I had my first camera was a Canon EOS-1.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, film camera too. Yeah. And then I got the Canon EOS-1 Vs when I started working, and then
those are the ones that like tracked your eye. They had some autofocus one on a Canon that would actually like it tracked your pupil for autofocus.
Did it?
Way back in the day. I think it was an EOS-1 or something like that.
Yeah. They were super advanced, but they were just film cameras, but they were stunning.
Yeah.
They were stunning. Yeah. I loved them. Because we're probably around the same age, and like when I kind of got into photography in a backwards way. Like I was.
You know how old I am, so you said probably.
Yeah, we're like, I'm 45, so you're 49.
Okay,
So yeah, at least I don't have to fucking jiu-jitsu you. Hopefully we're in different age categories.
No, the same one, 45.
Fuck it, I'm not doing it.
Same category.
But for me, like I was playing sports a lot at a young age. So I didn't have like any free time, so I never had any hobbies. And then it wasn't until my basketball career was like done. So I played college ball, loved it. And then I wasn't good enough to play professional anywhere. And then I went to China, and just to get out of Dodge.
Play or just?
No, just to like hang out.
You just picked up and went to China
at 22. Yeah.
What made you decide to go to China? That sounds crazy.
I just needed to be somewhere else. Like I saw.
Someone gave you a free ticket to China?
No, I paid for it. Like, yeah, I mean,
just wanted to go. Why did you want to go to China?
Well, it was twofold. It was threefold. It was one, I took a class on Chinese history and Chinese politics in university. I studied international politics. So it interested me already.
Yeah.
And then number two, I started seeing like the kind of lifestyles my friends had and the kind of jobs that they were getting, who were like maybe a year or two ahead of me, and none of it looked interesting or attractive. And then And then two, I was like kind of depressed, and I didn't want to just hang around and be like the guy that used to play ball and then end up in like a beer league or some corporate league with all these other guys that I played with like a decade ago. Like, I just didn't want that. I just needed like a clean, fresh break. So, so yeah, when I was 22, I just went to China for 3 months and did a whole tour around China. And then I came home for Christmas and then told my family I was going to move to China. I went back and I did 18 years in Shanghai. Yeah. But that first 3 month trip, it opened me up to writing.
Girl there or something, and you got married?
Yeah, I got married there. Yeah. That's
you to stay for 18 years there. You just loved it there.
I really loved it there for a long time. Yeah. From 2001 when I went to 2015, Shanghai was really amazing. Like, China was amazing. Like, it was growing. It was an exciting place to be. You felt really free there. The economy was wide open. Like, I was a photographer there. I worked for Time, Newsweek, Forbes, Fortune, New York Times, Wall Street Journal. So there was a lot of work. All the big journalism magazines knew me. So I was working like 5 days a week as a freelancer, which is incredible.
Wow.
Because China was in the news every day.
So wait, before you went there, were you already doing photography or?
No. So on that first trip when I went, I started writing and taking pictures and I fell in love with it. And then I was like, I want to make this my life. Like, I want to travel. And when I grew up, when I was growing up, I had National Geographics around. Like, my mom collected them. So we had like all the Steve McCurry and Michael Yamashita and all these like wonderful documentary photographers that were working for National Geographic at the highest level.
Yeah.
And that's what I grew up with. And then I was like, oh, I want to do that too. So I thought, like, I'm in China. People want to know about China. This is the place for me. So, so then I came home and then I got my dad bought me a Canon EOS-1 for Christmas. Yeah. And then I went back to China with that.
Was it like the latest, greatest, or was it like old kind of?
It was used.
It was used.
Yeah, but I remember
It was still current. It wasn't like it was outdated or anything.
No, it was great. I got it from Henry's, which is
Wait, EOS-1, is that the SLR manual, or is that the latest kind of autofocus?
It was autofocus. It was autofocus. Yeah.
I'm remembering it correctly then. It's like a pretty beefy, like, got a vertical grip and
yeah. It was great. And then he bought me the camera and then I bought the lenses. That was our deal, right? So I got a couple lenses on there. And then I just started traveling around China. So I was teaching English, and then I had a deal with the school that I was teaching English with that I would do like kind of 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off.
To teach English, you had to know Mandarin or China?
Just have to be white. Just have to be white and speak English.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have to know their language.
In the early days, it was so easy to go to China and like teach. Nowadays, you have to have a bachelor's degree and a teaching degree and all this other stuff. But in the old days, you didn't need anything. And you just had to be like a white guy who spoke English. And then they teach you how to teach, right? And then they have their manuals and stuff and you work through them. And it was great because I got to meet all these like business executives that all wanted to like improve their jobs and improve their lives. And in China,
like a trade school or like a community college type thing, or?
It was like a private language school. But it was great because like a bunch of the other teachers were also Canadian and I'm from Toronto. So it was kind of like my first group of friends, and we're still like friends to this day. So it was formative years.
Okay.
But then I would take 2 weeks off from the school, and then I would go traveling all around China just shooting, and I would just buy as much film as I could carry and go shoot it all.
Street photography, or?
Yeah, just wandering around these mega cities in China with like 40 million people and just trying to document life. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It was a wild ride. It was good fun. I was lucky though. I didn't have like student debt hanging over me. I didn't have too many financial issues, and living in China was dirt cheap at that time. Now it's, Shanghai is one of the most expensive cities in the world now, but in 2001,
it's like you figured out that there's no mandatory recipe to life early on, like way earlier than me. I feel like,
yeah,
it's like I didn't figure this out until like I think 4 years into college.
Yeah, I think going to China was the big win for me, because everyone around me said don't do it. Like, they're like, why would you go to China? And I was like, because I need something else here. Like, there's got to be something else, and I'm just going to go to the country that is like the complete opposite of Toronto, middle class life in Toronto. So I was just like, I need to see something else in this world before I settle in, get married, get a mortgage, and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
So I pulled that trigger.
That's just so cool.
But then I
never even thought of like traveling abroad and just living somewhere else. I thought like I just want to pay the bills somehow better than
better than the parents did. Yeah.
A little better. Yeah.
I think this is an issue though. Like when you grow up in the United States, like everything's here. So it's like, why would you leave?
Yeah.
But when you grow up
in Southern California, Orange County, and like, it's like hard to find a better weather.
Yeah.
You know, just it's hard.
But for me, like growing up in Canada, we always looked to the US as like, oh, we should go there because there's way more opportunity. Like, oh, that's why all the actors and comedians come down here, like Jim Carrey, Mike Myers, Ryan Reynolds, Ryan Gosling, like all these guys, they fly down because there's nothing going on in Canada. And Canada's kind of like that. Like you can do, there's some decent jobs if you want to do banking or be a lawyer or something like that, but it's all kind of,
yeah.
And if you're doing stuff in the creative arts and you really want to like have an interesting career, I think you do have to come down here. But then I was thinking about coming down here, but then I was like, well, I really want to like really travel and see the world because I had studied it. Like I think studying international politics in university made me globally curious. Yeah. And I think that also kicked in.
Definitely one good thing about college, you know, for sure, you know, because like I always think like, man, did I waste time in college, you know? But I think I take off for granted what I learned in college that just sparked like the interest in photography and all the things I'm doing now, you know, even marketing is.
Yeah. I mean, marketing's huge, right?
Yeah.
So when you were working, doing the frat parties and the formals and everything like that, like, did you just think like, oh, that's a good paycheck? Like, did you ever think there was more to photography than that?
Well, again, the creative side of photography wasn't really, I don't think it was what interested me. Like, it wasn't super interesting to me. Like I was taking photography classes and for example, like we'd turn in a project and I would go take pictures of like a duck at a pond, just trying to get the exposure right and print it, get the whites and the blacks and the detail and stuff.
You were printing your own.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. You learned how to do that?
Yeah. I actually ran the lab. I got obsessed with it and I ran the lab and I got my own keys and I was in there all night, like printing and stuff. It did catch fire and the magic of photography but I think it was like what I was trying to get at was like, it wasn't the creative like process of shooting photos. To me, it was more just the technical, like blew my mind, like how you can take life and capture a moment and freeze time and then preserve it forever, like that one moment. So to me, that was like mind blowing. And then the equipment, all the equipment and the technical stuff around it, like cameras blew my mind, like the processing of how a photograph would develop, that all blew my mind. So that's what I think was so interesting to me about photography and it was like toys, like playing with like cool toys, you know, and then what they could do.
Yeah.
But the creative, like what I was saying, like we'd turn in a project at the end and I'd turn in like a duck that I shot in the pond and someone would come and they'd have this whole installation, like a bed of nails with photos stuck to the nails. And it was like this whole creative thing that they went through and they were like explaining what everything meant. And to me, I was like, what the heck? Like I'm in the wrong place. Like I could not even think that. You know, I couldn't think that up.
You weren't in a place to use photography for like pushing the boundaries of art, right?
No, yeah. Like I didn't understand the art side of it. To me, it was more like I understood photojournalism. That was something that I was attracted to because things that were already happening, I felt like I wanted to curate those. I wanted to like pull those out and preserve those little moments. But like coming up with something to photograph, like creating it out of thin air and making it happen. I think photography for that kind of stuff is more of a byproduct. Like it's just to capture what you made. But I like photography for capturing what was already there, like real life. You know, I think that was more for me.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. Like capturing real life beautifully is hard to do. And it takes like a real skill. And I think that's the storytelling these days that doesn't pay because everyone has a phone on or a camera on their phone and everyone has Instagram, right? Like I can't tell you, like, so I do these, I travel around and do talks about my photography work back in the day and I published a few books and I remember just being like at a school one time and I was just talking about like this idea of like going to these cities in China or these villages in China and trying to explain what I was seeing to my family back home. And then figuring out like, oh, it needs to be a photo, right? And then okay, how do I scan them? And then I had the old scanners where you load them up and slide them in, and I was scanning stuff. And my first few assignments for the New York Times were all in film back in the day. So what happened is I had to work through the hierarchy. So I ended up in China, there were a bunch of English language magazines for the expat community. So I started working there, and they would give me some money to go out, and I would write and then shoot a little travel story about some village somewhere or someplace. And those were amazing. I was doing like a bunch of those a year. And then I graduated from that.
Writing and shooting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they didn't have money for both. So they would just give you money for like the full package, right?
Okay.
So, and
writing, an English teacher. So.
Yeah. Writing was hard. And I wrote enough political science essays in my day. But then I went to from there I went into regional newspapers and magazines, which was like Hong Kong and Singapore. And then I got into the airline magazines back when that was a good business. It used to be amazing.
Yeah.
And then
advertising or articles, like editorial stuff.
Editorial stuff didn't pay as well as the advertising stuff. And then from there I made the jump to journalism, and then I started working for all the U.S. magazines.
Okay.
Yeah. But it was amazing, and to be in China at that time and be like someone who was actually seeing it and reporting on what was going on was pretty idyllic. Like it was.
What was like the thing that stands out the most to you that was like something you covered, like something that was like exciting or?
Every day, man. Every day there was stuff going on. Like I
feel oblivious. Like I just kind of grew up in a bubble. Like Orange County's kind of a bubble, you know.
That's a good way to describe it.
Class is a bubble, yeah. So, like honestly, I don't think I was thinking about any of that stuff during those years. So, what was like anything like that would blow my mind?
Well, you know, like the guys would sit around. So there were a few journalists, there were a few New York Times guys in Shanghai, and a few in Beijing, and the whole part of the job was like. China, like the central government in Beijing comes out and says X, and then we're like, no, that's not going to happen. And then we go and figure out what's really happening, right? That was kind of the deal. Because China, like the way that China operates and the way they communicate with their own people is like, we can solve any problem, we manage everything, we'll take care of you, right?
Yeah.
So I remember there was avian flu that came out. This was like 2006 or 7. This was a great story. And so avian flu came out, and China has like 6 billion poultry birds that are farmed and used to cultivate for the poultry industry in China. So they got a lot of birds, and then they're like, avian flu has hit one province in China. We're going to stop it. No problem. No one has to worry. The government's in charge. We're going to inoculate, give a vaccine to every poultry bird in China. And we were just sitting around being like, wow, that's a lot of needles and a lot of vaccines. And this was, 2006, way before COVID.
I mean, El Pollo Loco cooks how many chickens a day,
So we're like, no, that's not going to happen. So we got in the car, we drove out to this village or this county in Anhui province, which has the most poultry birds of any. So we wanted it to be kind of representative of the problem, the size of the problem. So we went out to this poultry county that has the most farms for poultry in all of China. We went there and we sat outside a veterinary office, and we were waiting a couple hours, and then eventually these two guys came out, got on their motorcycle, ride out to one of the farms, park their motorcycle. They're in all white, like they're vets, right? And then they talk to the farmer for a little bit, and then they start inoculating birds. And we talked to the veterinary people, and we're like, we're from the New York Times. Do you mind if we watch and take some pictures and talk to you? And they're like, yeah, no problem. This is a central government program. Like, we have nothing to hide, right? And then we talked to the farmer, and we're like, we're on your property. Do you mind? And he's like, yeah, no problem. And he's like making us tea and stuff like that. So we're talking to the vets, and I'm shooting everything. And the journalist, the head journalist there, Howard French, who worked for the New York Times for like 25 years, he's like, they're only using one needle. So that day they inoculated like 2,000 birds, but they used one needle for the whole thing.
Interesting.
Yeah. So here's this idea.
Could have been spreading the virus.
Yeah. Like if bird number one had avian flu, then everyone.
So potentially they could have been trying to create a virus, or.
No, I don't think there was that. I think it's just like the Beijing central government thinks that everyone in the country is sophisticated and educated, but they're not. Oh. And then when they put out a mandate like that, they don't think like, that they're going to have like 6 billion needle heads, one different one for every, or because maybe they've mass produced the vaccine already, right? And but then the idea of like executing at a high level locally becomes the problem. And yeah, it was a front page story and stuff like that. So we got to do crazy shit like that all the time.
I just think like, would I want to eat a chicken that they just injected with some cocktail?
Oh, who knows what they inject them with here, right? You have no idea the amount of hormones that we're eating. Yeah. Growth hormones to make them fat and heavy so they can sell them for a higher price. That all ends up in us. Yeah. It's not just chicken. It's everything. Anything that we consume.
Scary.
Yeah. So we would do stuff like that. And yeah, so that's how I got into the journalism side of it. And then, of course, China was booming. So then I was doing corporate work, like, shooting factories, corporate portraits. And that was kind of fun, but less exciting than the hardcore journalism stuff. So for you, when did you decide, like, oh, there's more to this photography business than just, working with that man that you were working with before? Like, when did you think, like, I can go out on my own?
Yeah. I remember thinking that, man, I like, because you work for a guy for 3 years and you're studying and you're asking questions, and then eventually you start thinking that you could do it. You're like, man, I could probably do this myself, But I think what really sparked the idea of doing it on my own was I started working for a wedding photographer, this guy named Jim Sisko, and he was booked up doing a lot of weddings. He needed somebody to refer, so he took me under his wing and started training me. I was his assistant like for a summer and did like 20 or 30 weddings with him that summer. Maybe not that many. It was somewhere around like 15 to 20 weddings where I'd assist him. And that was very eye-opening because growing up kind of lower middle class, the coolest wedding I ever saw was like at my church, like the cake reception afterwards upstairs. Like it was like not this big weddings where they spend a bunch of money. So when I started going to weddings with Jim, I was just like, whoa, like there's like real money in this. Like, and then he told me what the bouquet cost. It was like $1,000. And I think he was charging around $1,000 to shoot the wedding. So I remember thinking like, this is back in like 98 or 97. And I remember thinking like, wow, like you need to charge more. If they're spending that on flowers, how much more important is capturing and preserving the memories, and making them look beautiful.
Yeah.
And
they'll spend an arm and a leg for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember telling Jim like, they spent $1,000 on the flower, just the one she's holding. What did they spend on this whole wedding? I remember just like being trying to figure it out. But after doing that for a whole summer, I realized like I could shoot a wedding. Like he showed me the ropes, and he was training me to do weddings on my own because he wanted to refer me. We had a deal. He was going to take like a 25% commission off everything he referred me, and I would have clients instantly. And so it was a win-win, and that's when I realized like I could just hit the ground running and do this wedding photography business. But I wanted to like make sure I knew how to like run a business properly. So I switched my major from engineering to business marketing. So I wanted to like learn how to run a business. And
in year 4.
In year 4, I had like 1 year left. I was like on the 5-year plan, because I snowboarded a lot. I probably could have done it in 4 years if I didn't snowboard, but I got hooked on snowboarding and got a few, D's and F's here and there, scattered in. I think I was on academic probation for 1 semester. But I got out of it because it was getting harder, more boring, and I just did not want to be tempted to do that for a living. I just didn't want to, even if I finished it and got my degree, I didn't want to like go in and have photography as a backup plan. I wanted photography to be my like, first and only option,
It's true, isn't it? Like, I think if you get a degree in something like engineering and then you don't use it afterwards, you almost feel like a fool, right? Like, it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So it's great. Like, and it's funny because most people aren't brave enough to change their majors.
I did not have the support of really too many people around me. Most of them were saying like, finish your degree. What do you like? Finish your degree and do photography on the side, or do photography as a hobby and be an engineer. It's going to make more money. It's going to be more secure, whatever. But I just didn't want to be tempted to do that, and I switched my major. I didn't switch it to photography because I felt like the photography classes, in my opinion, were kind of boring too. Like I liked some of it. I was a lab tech, so I had my own keys to the darkroom. But that was where I had fun, when no one was watching me, no one tell me what to do. I was like printing photos on my own, and I knew that I'd study photography on my own because it was fun for me. Like my type of photography was fun for me. So I didn't pursue a degree in photography. I just figured I'd do the stuff that I wouldn't do on my own, like marketing. I thought marketing was kind of boring, so I didn't want to do that on my own. So I needed the accountability, the school telling me to like, you have to do this stuff to learn it. So that was my way of tricking myself into learning how to run a business.
And that's hard, man. That's no joke. I mean, like, because you don't think when you're running around trying to take pictures all the time, you forget like how to treat clients, how to get new clients, how to build a website.
Yeah. I mean, you get caught in the rat race of like, you got to shoot because you got to pay the bills, right?
Yeah.
And then you're never thinking long term where like, how do I build a brand? How do I build like, something that where I could charge more? I can get kind of out of the rat race, And I think that that was what the degree helped me with, because I instantly right away when I started my business, I was thinking like marketing. I was thinking like, how do I market myself? How do I create a brand that will help me not just shoot for a living and enjoy it, but also excel so that someday I could maybe coach my kids' sports and not be working every single weekend shooting weddings,
Mm-hmm.
So I can like make more for less time. So it would create some freedom in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something I thought about early on,
It's really smart. Yeah, I never got that far. I was pretty much always shooting my own stuff, and I never really built like a business around it. Like I had plenty of work and I made plenty of money, but I never got to the point where like I had assistants or I could have someone else shoot something, or I never got like at that level. And then I gave up kind of around 2010-ish because the print publishing industry fell apart after Lehman Brothers collapsed in 2008. So I went from doing like almost working every day for years to not working at all in 2009. In 2010 was worse. And then I was like, I'm going to make television shows. So I figured out how to make TV shows after that. And I was like, at least that's something a little better. Because back when I started, like the New York Times and all these magazines, they were paying a ton.
Yeah.
I was making great money. And then like for example, you could make, like, let's say you could make $500 for a day working for a magazine. And then by the time I retired or stopped, it was down to like $100.
Really?
Yeah. Like they just slashed
competition, or because they just have the budget, or
all that. So the way it was explained to me is like all the classified ads left the newspapers and the magazines and went online on like Craigslist and whatever. And that was the big money earner for the magazines. Because like if you wanted to sell a used car back in the day, you had to, put an ad in the New York Times. Yeah. And that was like $50. And there's thousands of them doing that, like rent an apartment. Like, the classified ads in the New York Times was where you knew what was going on in New York, like for generations. And then all of a sudden, all that goes online and the newspaper doesn't know how to deal with it. And they just lost like all their revenue. And then it took them like years to figure out online subscriptions and online models. And that whole switch was really painful. And a lot of the journalists had to take like voluntary pay cuts, and like the newspaper really went through a lot. Now, New York Times is still around. It's not the newspaper I worked for back in the day, but it's still around. But all the magazines are gone. Yeah. Like Newsweek, Forbes, Fortune, like they're all just like online, like
websites.
Yeah, I don't even know what they are anymore. But they just do like paid advertisements. Like it's terrible. Like there's nothing going on there. So I remember I was doing a New York Times shoot, and they wrote me and they're like, okay, we need you to fly from Shanghai to Chengdu, which was about a 3-hour flight. And then we need you to meet a driver, and then he'll take you 3 hours into the countryside. You need to get a portrait of this man we're doing a feature on next week. I was like, okay, great, no problem. And they're like, but we need you to come back the same day because we can't afford a hotel.
Like, oh man.
And I'm like,
they're fun out of the job, all that driving.
And then I was like, but there's like a $50 a night Holiday Inn at the airport. Like I've been there many times. Like I know the country. And I'm like, you don't even have $50 for a hotel. Like you're gonna run me 20 hours back and forth. And I was just like, yeah. I was like, I got to get out of this. Yeah. I was never smart enough to get like fully into corporate or advertising or weddings, because that's where, the real money was made. And a lot of my contemporaries that only focused on journalism stuff, they got cleaned out as well in like the early 2010s.
The guy that mentored me, one of the guys that mentored me, Mike Colón, he worked for the Orange County Register, and he was like a lifer, like he had been there 25 years or something, or 20 years. And I remember they were struggling. He was looking to get into weddings. And like, I was a kid growing up watching him shoot for the paper. And then when I started my business, he was coming to me and be like, hey, I want to get into weddings. Can you like, show me the ropes a little bit on like how you're marketing yourself or whatever. But I remember being like kind of surprised that like, wow, things are changing, like, like why is a newspaper struggling? Like, oh, this whole online thing is just taking off. And it's weird that we lived through the invention of the internet, it's kind of weird. Like,
and social media.
Yeah. Social media too.
Like you think about it. I mean, I started my photography career before Facebook. I ended my photography career before Instagram. Yeah. So it was always funny. Like when I give talks out there, I tell people like I had an entire photography career before Instagram even existed. But I love throwing up the old photos every now and then. But it's funny because my photos now are with Getty Images, so they're part of the archive. And but I was checking. I think it was like last year. I was just checking like, oh, are they still there or something like that? And now it's in the historical. So they moved it from like because it used to be in current events, and now it's like it's all my entire archive is part of the historical China archive. So I was like, oh yeah, I guess that was a few years ago.
It's like how like the K-rock music back in the day was like alternative, and now it's like classic rock. You're like, wait a minute.
Yeah, the tastes are changing.
Oldies? No, it's oldies.
So, I mean, how did you feel comfortable like going out on your own and starting a business? Like, cause that's a big move. Like you got to have a lot of balls to be like, I'm going to be fine.
It was like when the day it happened it was kind of like I was trying to make a transition. I was trying to make a slow transition. I was phasing out of the different jobs that I had. I switched my major. That was scary because I lost all financial support from my mom who was helping me with school. She's like, no, if you're going to do that, I'm not helping you. If you're going to quit after 4 years and do something else, we're done. Like the money is not coming in anymore. So I was like, crap, I got to now figure out a way to fund my own college for everything,
How stressful was that?
It was stressful, but honestly, I think it was probably the best thing for me because it lit that fire, like I'll prove you wrong kind of thing. Like, oh, my mom, she doesn't believe in me anymore.
I'm taking you down, Mom.
Yeah. It was just like, oh, I'll show you.
Yeah.
And
it's good to have that fuck you every now and then where someone's like, you're not good enough to make that work, or something like that, and then you just use that as your enemy. It's tough when it's your mom, but it's like, yeah. But it's nice. It's nice to have like an opponent in the for the motivation, right?
Honestly, like I remember, like jumping ahead, my wife would tell me like, how are you so motivated? Like you get up in the morning and you just go all the way till night. Like what motivates you? Like 'cause she didn't have that motivation. She was wondering where I got it from, and I never really asked myself that. I just had it.
Mm-hmm.
But looking back, my mom passed away. She died of cancer like kind of halfway through my career. And after that, I could see a peak in my career and then a decline. And I think it was when my mom passed.
Oh, really?
And it was like I was trying to prove something to her
for the whole first half of your career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that first 10 years I was telling you about in my business when I got burnt out, it was like I was trying to like prove myself or something. I think I'm not sure. I mean, it was a lot of things that you wanted to provide and everything. You want to set yourself up.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that was what drove me was like, oh, she didn't think I could do it. Like my mom didn't think I could do it. And she probably knew I could do it, but maybe she just didn't want, I don't know.
It's funny how the generation before us believed that like higher education was the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah.
And now it's like, well, maybe it's better to work for UPS and make $175,000 driving trucks, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because I remember coming out of political science at the University of Toronto. I could either go into law school, business school, and that was it. Like there were no jobs. And I was thinking like, oh, I'll like work for the UN and like travel the world. And actually one girl that I went to school with did end up working at the UN, and she lives in Geneva. And I saw her on LinkedIn the other day, and she's like still, I mean, there's classes of like 200 people. So I went to school with her, but she actually like turned that job into like most people who study poli-sci end up doing teaching or doing something. It's not very fulfilling, but it got me to like actually travel, but it never led to a real job. Yeah. And my parents were like, oh, you got to go to school. You got to get your degree. You got to get your degree. And I'm like, well, there's a lot of ways to make money. Like, and there's a lot of better ways to make money. And there's a lot of ways to spend less money.
I still like even today, I still think that I'm missing something. I still think that there's a better way to live than the way we're doing it. Like, I don't know, living in Ladera Ranch, putting kids through school, they're sitting there for 8 hours a day, going to school. The teachers see them more than I do. It's like, I keep, there was a time where I wanted to homeschool my kids or just like van life, like travel around with my family. And I would try to talk my wife into it. I'm like, there's a better way to live. Like, this is not right. Like the way, like comfort and just, you know, like living vicariously through characters in television versus going out and doing it ourselves. Like there's a better way. And I still feel like that, but I haven't quite put my finger on what I need to do.
You need to watch, there's a podcast I did, I'll send you the link after, but it's with my friend Sunny. And Sunny is this powerhouse of a woman. She's an endurance athlete. And she,
the one that did the Alaska thing that you just put, I was watching that.
Were you? Yeah, it's great. So she's awesome. So she was a management consultant.
Okay.
Like working for like McKinsey or something like that. Like she went to Harvard Business School, and she was totally on that like management consulting track, you know, making great money, but burned out, hated her life. So she just fucking quit. And she met this guy who she ended up marrying, her husband, Paul, who I also did a podcast with. It came out yesterday. And they're the two of them are just amazing because they both had very successful careers, and then they just went, fuck it, there's more to life. And they lived out of a van for like 2 years, and all they did was like climb mountains all around the United States and do hikes. And like Paul's a big wall climber, so he's climbed El Cap at Yosemite for like 40 plus years. Like he's in his 60s now. And then they bought a small adventure tour company in Utah, in a small town. And they live there and they help other people have adventures. And then during the off season, they go and climb and do their own thing. And they look really happy. I mean,
that sounds very attractive to me.
Yeah.
Actually. Yeah.
I mean, I think there's so many better, I think the way we've constructed our lives and our society is really disgusting. And because I made TV shows all around the world, like I filmed in more than 40 countries, and we do all these hikes and we're in villages and we're meeting people like all over the world. And they're just so much happier than we are. And it's like, you know, and sure, they don't have the healthcare, they don't have the education, they don't have so much that we have, but there's something in that we're really missing out.
It's kind of like, less is more sometimes.
Yeah.
And the screens are a big deal for me. Like, I feel like I have an addictive personality maybe, I don't know, but like I get hooked on a screen and then I go from one screen to another. And then I'm just like, what am I doing? Like, I should be out doing something that I like to do, like rock climbing. Like I should be out doing something. And I don't know, I feel like because we have the technology to basically comfortably sit on your couch or like lay in bed and feel like you're doing something crazy and you're seeing all this amazing thing that's custom fed to you through the algorithms, it's like, it's really easy to spend 2 or 3 hours and then actually not have time to do the thing you wanted to do.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. It's just sucking the life right out of us. Yeah.
And what's the answer? Like, I feel like I need to rip all the screens off my walls and throw away all my phones and or like move to a third world country where they don't have it.
Yeah. Move to a third world country where they don't have it. Yeah. Have your kids
where they absolutely have none of that. They can't afford it.
Yeah.
And just give away everything I own and just go live differently.
It might be an idea. Like one of my best friends, well, he's not my best friend. I love the guy. But we've met a few times over the years, but we stay in really good touch. He was in the military for many, many years and had a really nice career. And then he quit and went into private contracting and made a bunch of money. And then he bought a whole bunch of homes, and he has an agent rent them out, and all he does is motorcycle all around the world. Yeah. And he might get pissed off at me saying this, but right now he's in Russia.
Is it Russia?
As an American passport holder.
Oh, someone's gonna be looking for him. What color is his motorcycle?
So I told him not to go actually because he was in Georgia. So he's been trying to ride around the world for years, right? And I met him in Istanbul during COVID because I got stuck in Istanbul during COVID. So Nate came over to our house and we had a bunch of drinks and he told us all about himself, and he's a wonderful human being. And then he was going through Turkey. He was in Istanbul, but then Turkey closed their borders. So he couldn't get out of Istanbul. So we were both stuck in Istanbul. I couldn't get out either. And then when Turkey opened their borders, he went into Tbilisi, and then he wanted to get up into Russia. But then the war happened, And then since the war happened, he couldn't get into Russia for many years, and now he can't go south into Azerbaijan, which is another country. And then as an American, you can't go to Iran. So he was kind of like stuck, but now he figured out a way to get into Russia and then to get into Kazakhstan because he wants to keep going east, I guess, right? But yeah, so he just bought a bunch of homes, no, not luxury homes, just bought a bunch of homes that he could afford.
For like a cash flow, or for like a
rental cash flow, yeah. And he just travels and he just loves it. And he just hangs out with people, goes to the local pub, has beers with people in the evening, loving the traveler's life, living very light, no possessions other than the bike.
It sounds awesome. I feel like in a way I'm stuck because I have 4 kids and a wife, and they're not all on board. They're in high school sports. So my wife has her own business, and it's like, even though I want to do all that, it doesn't mean I'm going to get to, unless I want to leave my family, which I don't. I feel like family is kind of, in a way, the source of life. Is like your future. And if I left my family, all I'd be thinking about is probably my family. I need to get back to them, so
just on a mountaintop somewhere.
Yeah. So I got to try to convince them to go with me, or
that's hard,
or I'm stuck at home.
Yeah, I mean, that's hard. I mean, that led to, in a lot of ways, that was what ruined my first marriage. Like, I think I was traveling all the time, and like I was doing, like, I was really intense, actually. I was doing like 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. So I would be filming. So I was living in China, right? And I would like fly to like Papua New Guinea, where we did a wonderful episode. And I'd be there for 2 weeks in the dirt, in the mud. I'd lose like 15, 20 pounds in 2 weeks. And then I'd come back to Shanghai, for 2 weeks, lay on the couch, broken, then finally recovering, get back into the gym for a couple of days, and then I'd be back out again. And then she was just like, what the fuck? Like, she just got tired of it.
What about me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And fair on her, like, it wasn't great. And, but it was the career. Like, I just didn't know, you don't know what to do, right? And then, of course, some people can manage it, some people can't. I just couldn't. But oh my God, like, the adventures were so addicting. Like, living outside, walking 20 miles a day, living in a tent, being on the side of a mountain, being in the middle of nowhere. It was just like, it was such an elevated existence that coming home was such a downer. It was so depressing. And of course, that's not what your spouse wants to see. Like, they want to see the best of you. They want to see you happy when they're around you, right? And it was just like,
you get home and you're, you get home and your wife probably wanted to talk about all the things she was doing, which are not interesting compared to what you've been doing, right? And so you're just like, not interested, and everything seems super boring, and you just want to go back out.
Yeah, it's hard, man. It's hard. Like, you just don't have the people skills to pull it off sometimes, and I didn't have the skills, and it didn't work. And again, the more you do, the more you get addicted. Like, these stories. It's just like, I just want to ride down to Patagonia once, from LA, right? And I just want to do that one trip, and then once I do it, I'll get it out of my system, and then I can just be a normal husband. It's like
the fire to do it again, right? Yeah.
It's like, next we're doing Africa for 6 months. It doesn't, because it's such a better, like, because, okay, you have to think about it, right? Like, we all have our own life, but we're different versions of ourselves with all our different people. Like you are different with me than you are with your children, than with your wife, and everything like that. But I found out at a really early age, at 22, that the version of myself I liked best was the version of me traveling. Because I was humble, I was curious, I was open-minded, and I wanted to learn. Like, it was like the greatest education I could have had, right? And those versions of me were the happiest. It had nothing to do with how much money was in my wallet.
Right.
And then when I started to make money teaching and stuff like that, and that's another story too, it was hilarious. Like, we were making, I don't know, like $3,000 a month teaching English, and we couldn't spend it. Like, this is how cheap Shanghai was. Like, if you stayed out of the 5-star hotels, because the 5-star hotels, they all had fancy restaurants and fancy bars at Western prices, right?
Yeah.
But if you ate locally and drank locally,
$100 crabs that are this big.
But if you ate locally and drank locally for $3,000 a month, you lived like a king or queen. And so we couldn't. So it didn't matter like how much money I had, because I knew that I was living so cheap, I could afford it, right? And then that really got me out into the villages. I was hiking all through Tibet. I was doing everything I thought I wanted to do, and it ended up being what made me happy. And it's just because I went to a really cheap place to live, and I was able to kind of work part-time and then do what I wanted the rest of the time, and it ended up being kind of leading to that whole career.
It's like freedom, right? It's like if it seems like you had freedom because you had money in the bank and everything was so cheap. So you basically bought yourself a bunch of time.
Yeah.
And then you can go do what you really want to do.
Buying time.
And that's kind of the American dream, is to like be able to have it all and have money in the bank so you have freedom. And people think like, oh, America's where it's at. But the reality is it's so expensive to live here. It's just a trade-off. So you're just like time for money,
Mm-hmm.
money for time. And then it's just back and forth. And who really gets ahead? You have to like really strike the rich, or kind of give away the best years of your life for the 20 years straight and sacrifice everything, how many marriages and everything else, and your kids hate you, in order to buy that time for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
in order to have that freedom to do what you really want to do.
Yeah.
And the reality is, it's not about money.
Yeah.
It's about time.
Yeah.
And if you just live in a cheaper area, you might be able to get there faster.
And it's funny too, because people always think like, oh, I'll just wait till I retire to travel around. And it's like, but that's not the best version of you. Like, you're in your 60s, maybe you're not as fit or as healthy. Yeah. And it's funny because like my whole family like bought into that. This is where the real lie comes in about how to live life. Like this whole idea of like retirement, right? Like my dad's generation was sold this idea of like, retire at 60, live your best life. And I tell you, like, you don't have to retire at 60. Like, fucking be an entrepreneur, start a small business, but keep the mind going, because like, you know, the cognitive
What do you do after
decline.
that? You're gonna sit on the couch?
Yeah.
What are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do? Well, he fucking golfed. Like, he's 78 now, and he golfs, and it doesn't always make him happy.
Yeah.
But he
So his mood depends on how he hit that day, right? Like, what is
exactly. But I was always like, oh, you should travel and see the world. But he wasn't always that curious. But I was thinking like, and then he had an ankle problem, and then like traveling became difficult. And then it's just like, I was like, I can't wait until I'm 60 to like do all this shit. Like I needed to fucking see it now. And it was amazing because the moment I knew I was hooked was not just going to China, but I lived in China and I was working there. And then I was like, oh, I've made enough money. I'm going to do something fucked up now. And then I went from Hong Kong to Istanbul overland through Central Asia. And
like, how, on a car or motorcycle?
by public transport, like bus, train, whatever, no planes.
By yourself?
Yeah, by myself. And that was when I knew like I'm never going to live a normal life again. Like I was like, this is the best. I knew it because I had a budget of $20 a day for food and transport and housing. And Central Asia is really cheap. So I went Hong Kong, and then I went from Hong Kong into mainland China. Then I went into Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan. And then I went into Iran, and then I went Azerbaijan, Georgia, Turkey, and then I went out to Istanbul, and then I flew home. And that trip blew my mind more than the first trip to China, because I was like, holy cow, like there is a literal whole world out there that I'm missing. Like China was great, but that second trip was like, I need to start working in these other countries and showing people like what Kazakhstan looks like and Kyrgyzstan looks like. And then I started filming.
What is it about all this traveling that you think makes you happy? I mean, you said that you're learning, you're humble. Is it just who you are when you're traveling? Like, or is it something about the people, what you're doing, the adventure, the unknown, or is it more about just how you feel about yourself? Like, what do you think?
I think it's how I feel about myself, and I think it's about the process of learning something new. I think if you're learning about a place or a people and you actually care, then that's amazing. And the other thing too is I thrived on being different. Like none of my friends traveled. Like no one in my family traveled. So I embraced the black sheep title, and I just went for it. And I'm like, I didn't just move to China to get a corporate job. Like I became a photographer. Then it's like, you know, I didn't move here just to like work. Like I'm going to travel the whole region and see this parts of the world that other people don't even want to see, and find the beauty in it. Right. Like that was very much what I wanted. And then when I started to be able to make TV, that changed everything. 'Cause then I was really able to push into new dimensions and new levels and fundraising and getting into all this. And we really filmed in places where people just don't film. And I loved it because we really had a chance to like tell really dynamic stories.
Were you involved in like deciding where you go and what story to tell?
Everything. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I produced, directed, and hosted my own shows. So Tough Rides, the motorcycle one, and then Extreme Treks and Expedition Asia. I did it all. So every single place we went to and every single story we told was something that I was reading about 6 or 8 months ago. And then to see it like come to fruition was amazing. And you, as a storyteller yourself and as a photographer, like if you plan a shoot and it goes the way you want and you get the stuff, like there's no better feeling. It's a wild one. So how far did you take the wedding photography work?
I feel like I took it all the way. Like I took it as far as I could possibly take it. I'm still actually shooting weddings, but fewer.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I wanted to take it to like a level where I got paid a lot of money for each wedding,
Mm-hmm.
so that I could take fewer weddings and have more time off to pursue, other things like pursue my family and, be with my kids more, the sports that I loved, and be able to do that, adventure, and live outside of work,
By time.
Yeah. So, but in the process, it was very time consuming, like building that brand. And I felt like I was constantly networking, constantly thinking about, how to elevate my brand or how spend money on advertising and marketing and all those things.
Mm-hmm.
And even I got involved in teaching because I realized that being in front of my peers was actually really helping my brand. And it was good for becoming more of a household name that would be more attractive to, the clients that I was going after.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, I did a lot of that, which the teaching became like almost another animal, a beast of its own, where I started focusing so much on that. And I lost touch with like, what am I really doing? Am I even shooting anymore? I was more like teaching and talking about my past jobs. And then I got burned out on teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what am I doing? Like, I didn't get into this business to talk about it.
Yeah.
I got into this business well, I guess the question was really, why did I get into the business? Because like, I thought I got into it for photography, but as it turns out, really, I think it was it was just really about doing something more fun for a living and trying to create freedom for myself, being my own boss, being able to make my own schedule, nobody telling you what to do. I didn't have to clock in, clock out. I liked that freedom. And I like, being bound by school tries to brainwash you into like sitting there
Mm-hmm.
and doing as you're told and not moving, and you're on a bell schedule. Like you check, clock in, clock out. It's like they're training you for that type of career.
And how miserable is it to have a boss?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we still have a boss. Like I still have a boss. Every client's a boss, but I don't have to. I don't know. Like I can disappear for a little bit if I need to. Or I can move on to another boss if I don't like that boss.
One of my buddies was a wedding photographer for many years, and he said like being a wedding photographer is the best because every wedding you get 3 more jobs. Like, because every time you go to a wedding, there's always other people there who are planning their own weddings, and they see you working. And if you carry yourself well and you're very professional, and you've got business cards on you, he was just like, the best advertising you can do is being really professional and getting good photos for that wedding, because those photos everyone will see, and then they'll be like, well, who is your photographer?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. Like, yeah, you're right. You're shooting a wedding and you're on stage because you're kind of like right there with the client, and they're the celebrities of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So you're right there photographing them, and everyone there who may be getting married in the future is thinking like they're watching you,
Mm-hmm.
like critiquing you, seeing how you get the job done, what kind of photos you're getting, how you interact with people, how professional you are.
Yeah.
So it's cool because it does take a lot of the marketing out of it. If you just want to shoot, and like say you just want to shoot weddings, just do a good job, just deliver and be a people person and meet people and, do a great job.
When you were at your busiest, at your height, did you have like an assistant who would help edit, or were you editing all your own stuff too?
I had a full-time assistant sitting in the office editing all my shoots. And at one point I had like 3.
Mm-hmm.
That was at my biggest point, I would say, as far as overhead. I had 3 people doing that for me. And I think what I realized was that as I got more and more expensive, I wanted to deliver a better and better product. And I would look through the images that my assistant would come up with from my, raw images. And I'm like, I didn't recognize them sometimes. I'm like, I don't remember even shooting that. And that really wasn't something that I would want to shoot. And I realized it was a test shot that they pulled in that they liked.
Oh, really?
And then I was like, well, there's a shot that looks familiar, but it's not the moment. Like that was a shot leading up to the moment. Where's the moment? You missed it. You got to that shot and you stopped. You didn't get to the, and they're not emotionally connected to the work. So they're just like, oh, that one's good enough. Boom, let's move on to the next group of images. Mike shoots too much. You know, he's spray and praying or something. Let me just pick one and move on. And they're not emotionally attached, which is, they're efficient and they get through it and they deliver. But when I looked at my work, I was like, this doesn't look like my work. And so I started to slowly get back to like doing it all myself. And then at this point in time, I'm like literally a one-man show. Like I bring in a team when we do shoots, and I do all my own editing, at least of my work. Sometimes my assistants will edit their own but I still go through their images and I'll be like, hey, can you redo this? Or hey, like, but for my work, like I edit it all myself.
That's amazing.
And it's very like, kind of sucks because it's a lot of work, but it's just me.
Yeah. It's hard to do all the editing. Like not a lot of people really know like how long it can take, because it doesn't come out of the camera perfect, right? Like sometimes you need to adjust the light or the contrast or add a little shadow. Like you can really play with it. And you're right. Like I remember like I was editing a book. I made a book called Chinese Turkestan, which is a black and white book. I shot all with these little Leicas. Cool. And it's all about this Muslim part of Northwest China. And I love that part of the world. But I spent like 8 years going back and forth there, and I made a book about it. And the way I figured out how to do it was I would do the edit, and then I would select all the images, and then they would do the color correcting and stuff like that, or they're just adjusting. Not a lot you can do with black and white.
Yeah.
But I remember like I had the loop and I had the light board, and I was just going through for days, just picking out like looking for those one moments where the guy's hand was right, or he looked, you know, everything had to be just perfect.
Yeah, no one's going to select your work like you are, you know, and it's like, yeah, you take pride in that. I did a shoot for a client of mine, and that's another thing weddings do is they lead you to other jobs. Like lots of clients, you book a client, a wedding client, and then that turns into like, you know, you're shooting for their small business or you're shooting their hobbies. Like I shot this guy's car collection. And
that sounds like a great job.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
Did he have any cool cars?
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he had like 60 cars in this huge garage. Like they're anywhere from like, you know, he had a whole fleet of Ferraris, like Lamborghinis, and then he had all these old muscle cars, and like every car kind of told a story to him.
Yeah.
It was kind of an eclectic group of cars, you know.
Was his name Jay Leno?
No. But he's kind of like probably a mini version of Jay Leno. Like the collection was like a mini version of that, but it's really, really cool. Like a lot of money went into it. They're like collectibles and all kinds of stuff. But I was hired to photograph them, and I think the client was thinking, I just want to document all my cars so I know kind of inventory.
Mm-hmm.
But I was thinking it was like an art project. Like I got to do this right. Like I got to light these things. And then I was thinking like, when I got there, I was like, how come he didn't wash them? Like they weren't like detailed.
Mm-hmm.
Like he hired me, paid me good money to come photograph them, but he didn't like really detail the cars. So I was like wiping down, trying to get the bugs off of the headlights. And then I'm like, screw it, I'll just retouch it, you know? And cause I was on a schedule, he gave me like 1 week to shoot 60 cars.
Oh my God, that's not enough.
No, I could shoot one car in a week. You know, like it'd take me a week to shoot one car.
Yeah.
I had to shoot 60, moving them around. Think about moving them around this garage and like trying to get them in good locations and stuff. So I was getting to the point of like the retouching took me forever,
mm-hmm.
like forever. Like I would blow this. I'd be in my room, in my office. It's like a bedroom upstairs in my house, and I'd be in my office and editing a photo, and I've zoomed in at like 200%, like taking off little bug splatters, and I would take in like dust, and then I'd be like, oh, that outlet on the wall behind is ugly. Let me remove that, and like, oh, there's like a thing that goes down the wall. Let me take that off, and then oh, like there's a grease spot on the ground. I was making these photos like literally because I didn't know really what size they were going to end up in this book I was making for them. It was like this, about this size, this mat, like I think it's a 13 by 16 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would retouch the crap out of these images, and you could literally blow them up as billboards, every single one of them. That's how good I did on them. But the client was getting pissed because I was taking so long, you know, and I was like, I'd send him like a video of like a screen capture of how much work I did on each photo. And he's like, Mike, don't do that much. I'm like, but I can't not.
Yeah.
These cars are too cool. And I can't not. And I would just stay up all night, every night.
What, he just wanted like a point and shoot?
I don't know what he wanted, to be honest. I think he wanted it amazing, but he also, because he paid me a lot of money, but he also wanted it now. And I was like, this can take months.
Mm-hmm.
Like at my rate, the rate of pay, the pace that I was going is taking months. So I think the job took me like 6 months to finish.
Wow.
And but I'm very proud of it. Like I wish you could see it. The book, I'm very proud of it. It's like leather bound. It's this huge, heavy coffee table book, and every photo, it looks immaculate. It looks like I did a studio shoot with all these cars. And if you saw like really what I had to work with as far as lighting and everything, I had to speed through it.
Can you imagine what you could do like with like a little turntable and a proper light up top and some other strobes?
A car studio.
Yeah, that'd be fucking epic, wouldn't it?
And you had a detailer like detailing, like it would have been a lot faster for sure.
Have you ever seen this lady on Instagram? A little bit of an aside. Her name is Supercar Blondie, and she's got like fucking 30 million Instagram followers and even more Facebook followers. But she lives in Dubai, and I met her when I was in Dubai for a bit during COVID too. And she's amazing. All she does is travel around the world, and all her and her team do are shoot cars and like video photography for social media to promote them, and like Porsche and Ferrari and Lamborghini. Whenever they have like a really like prototype car come out, they send her. She does like a test drive. But the time they take to set the lighting and do the car shoots and the stuff that they travel with, like it's a lot. Like sometimes they'll for like a week for one car.
Oh.
Yeah.
I just did this wedding in Lake Como, Italy, about a month ago, and
what a spot!
Yeah, it was beautiful. I think we brought like 10 check bags, like big Pelican cases full of gear, and usually I don't for a wedding, but we had to set up a studio, and they wanted like family portraits with big lighting and everything. So I can imagine like shooting cars, like how much gear you have to bring.
So listen to this. So I filmed this one series. We did this shoot for Discovery Channel in 2019. It was like the last thing I finished before COVID. And we did 10 expeditions in 10 countries in 10 months. So it was 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off for 10 months. And we had all the Pelican cases too. We had to travel with about 250 kg worth of gear. So what's that? Like almost 500 pounds, like 400 pounds, and we were traveling on planes everywhere with this shit.
Did you just pay for how much did it cost on average to travel?
So by the end of that shoot, we had spent over $40,000 on extra baggage fees. Yeah. And people are like, where does all the money go when you make TV? It's like fucking, it goes everywhere, but in your pocket, right? Like it's crazy. You would jump on a plane and it, you'd do $2,000 any direction in extra baggage costs because you're traveling with a ton of shit, and and tripods are heavy. Like, and sometimes we would bring lights, to light up some rooms when we would want to do like some proper interviews and stuff like that. Plus we had like 3 big Sony FS5s or FS6s or something. And then there was, it's just a lot of shit.
Yeah. It's heavy too. And just the Pelican cases alone weigh 50 pounds or something just to protect it.
And it's funny, the U.S. actually, I did the math, like the U.S. and U.S. airlines have the best deals for extra baggage fees. And the
media rates.
The media rates. And then the ones that rip you off the most are the Middle East airlines. Yeah. Emirates and Qatar are through the roof, man. They're so expensive. And it was terrible because I was living in Dubai and I was flying from Dubai to Malaysia, to Mongolia, to Kyrgyzstan. So we were traveling with all this stuff. And then all the batteries. So people never knew, like, they couldn't figure out, like, logistically how we could go off grid for 12 days in the desert in northern China and film, right? And it's like, well, you got to bring a generator and, you got to bring a shit ton of batteries. And it was so hard flying with a whole case of lithium batteries.
Check them, right?
Yeah. You can't check them, and then they don't want them in the cabin.
So what did you do?
Well, I had to bring them in the cabin.
Yeah.
And And we had flights that were delayed because we were stuck at security because the security guy wouldn't let us go through with a case of lithium batteries. Yeah. Because you think about it, like you need 4 or 5 drone batteries to get through a day or two, right? Like, because you're doing travel stuff, right? So every morning at sunrise, you're doing drone flights. Every evening, then you got the generator going. Like we had one, so we did this trek through the desert. We had a 16 camel caravan, and 5 camels were just drinking water. So they had these huge tanks of drinking water hanging off the sides.
The camels were just to carry all the drinking water for you?
Yeah, there was nothing out there. So we had 5 camels for drinking water. And then we had 1 camel, which was the diesel generator and the diesel fuel camel. And then the rest carried like our gear and the food and our tents and stuff like that. But yeah, six of the camels were just like the generator and water. So fun. But flying around was a nightmare just for the costs and
I
the
remember
batteries.
I remember going to like Dubai and I think it was Emirates, and you have to literally hide your carry-on because it's heavy. You got camera equipment in it, and so you have to hide it because if they see it, so like you hide it behind you, they're gonna look behind you and they'll be like, "Let me weigh that thing," and they charge you extra and they want you to check it or something. But I think it's a big money maker for them.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you would like hide it behind a podium, and I'd have one of my people like watch the carry-ons, and we'd be like, "We don't have carry-on," and then we'd walk away and grab it.
How good a feeling is it though when you get through security after carrying like 60 lithium batteries onto a plane? Yeah.
And you got to come home too. Like when you finally get home, you're just like, I can't believe I made it.
Yeah. We used to when we would travel to a country, we would fly into the capital usually, and then sometimes we would have to take a second flight. And the second flight, the extra baggage fees were sometimes even more than the international flight.
Yeah.
And it would be cheaper to hire a car and a driver to drive the gear while we flew. So we filmed in Uganda once, right? And we flew into the capital, and we were shooting in the capital, and then we hired a guy to take our like $40,000 worth of camera equipment, and he drove all night to get to the place where we were going to take this little bush plane. And so we woke up in the morning, jumped on the bush plane, 1.5 hour flight, but it took him like 12 hours to drive, right? So but we couldn't, but they wouldn't even let us bring the gear on the bush plane, and then there were no bigger planes. Yeah. And we didn't want to do like fucking 14 hours in the car if we didn't have to.
You have to charter your own plane or something.
Those little bush planes are amazing though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've always wanted one of those.
Yeah. Africa is fun. I really want to get my pilot's license while I'm here, actually.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I really want to do, because there's so many opportunities in some of these countries to actually fly. Like, and so the great thing about these little bush planes is when you actually like hire them, and the pilots are all like British or American anyways, and they'll always let you take the controls, and you can just, I don't know if you can say that, but it's
get your hours in, just take over.
Just filming.
I've always wanted to get that's on my bucket list too.
Yeah.
And I want to own like a little puddle jumper or something, like a plane that can get me around.
Yeah. I think flying yourself around the United States must be an absolute dream. Yeah. Because as long as you're in the continental United States, like nothing's really that far. Like, and some of these small planes, like you can fly like 2 hours before you need.
A plane that could like store a motorcycle, so you can like land and then just go see the area and then come back and take off again.
Yeah. That'd be epic.
I have a overlanding rig, a Land Cruiser, and my dirt bike goes on the back.
Nice.
That's my new setup. So I can like set up camp, pop up the tent, and then just like take off and explore.
So the photography career you've built for yourself has allowed you to get into jiu-jitsu and also have a pretty intense passion for motorcycle riding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a lot of passions. I think it's given me the time for sure.
Yeah.
And finances, I've been able to support a family and buy a lot of cool toys, Yeah. But it's been a long career so far, So you add to it. Some of my friends are like, "What the heck? How do you have so much stuff, so many toys?" I'm like, "I've been doing this a while,
What's the craziest place or the most fun place you've ever shot?
Noisiest place or fun place I ever shot? I mean, there's so many. Photography's let me travel a lot. Like, it's taken me all around the world, and
that's amazing. Like, because most people don't get that experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done a few shoots for like charities as well, where I've been to like Uganda and Tanzania and the Brazilian Amazon. That was really cool.
Where'd you go there? Did you fly into Manaus?
Yes.
Yeah.
Manaus.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. It's
a great spot.
Yeah. I did 2 trips on the Brazilian Amazon, and they were like 15 days on the river, like out in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. I have some fun stories from the Amazon. Like, one time I thought pirates were coming after us. I still think that there were pirates coming after us, because our guide, this guy Richie, he ran the whole charity down there. He was talking about these pirates on the river. They'll come up and hijack your boat and just like kill you and take your stuff,
Totally,
and take your boats. And so like I already had that in the back of my mind. And then we're cruising along in this kind of like a houseboat. It was like 3 levels. We all slept on there as a crew of like 20 or 30 of us, maybe not 20, about 20 of us. And so it was a pretty big boat. I don't know how many feet, but cruising down this river, and we were out in the middle, and you can't really see the shores, but there's like this little island that we're passing by, and all of a sudden this speedboat comes shooting out, and that's how they do it, right? They're on speedboats, and they're faster than you. So the speedboat comes shooting out towards us, and I look at Richie, and he's just got this kind of look in his eye, like, oh crap. And so I'm like, dang, like, is this happening? And then another speedboat comes out. And no, first we get stuck on a sandbar.
Oh, there's a lot of those.
No, wait, I'm remembering the whole thing. Sorry.
Yeah.
A boat was stuck on the sandbar. Another kind of, I think it was a smaller boat, was stuck on the sandbar. So we go to help them, and we hook up a rope and try to tow them off, and then we get stuck too. Then the speedboat comes out, and I was thinking, like, this is a perfect setup. Like, it was obviously a setup.
Like shooting ducks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was like going in my backpack. I had this big knife, like an SE, like big old camp knife.
Crocodile Dundee style.
Yeah. I had that. I put it in my check baggage, and I had it, and I was like, this is all I got. I don't have a gun. So I'm just going to hide behind this post. And when they come on the ship, I'm just going to, I don't know. I think maybe I could take out their leader. But they get close to the boat, and then they're saying something in Portuguese, and Richie recognizes the guy on the boat. It was a guy who was at a church that he planted or something, and one of the guys, one of the men of the village, like, he knew him, and so everything was cool. But I still think that guy was up to no good. I honestly do. And I asked Richie later, and he's like, yeah, probably.
Yeah,
he's probably up to no good. And then when he saw me and he knew that I was connected to the community and everyone knew me there, he was like, we're not messing with Richie.
The Brazil's amazing. Like, I did a tough ride to Brazil, like my motorcycle trip there, and I went all through the Amazon and ended up in Manaus. And then from Manaus we took the Road of Ghosts, which is the BR-319. It's like 700 miles. That's 1,000 kilometers. And we went, and then that took us back into like Porto Velho, which is it started working our way back down south. But the Brazilian Amazon is intense.
Yeah.
I'm glad you made it out alive.
They're even more intense, I think. The Amazon's beautiful. Like, we were swimming, fishing, like we would like hunt piranhas for lunch and stuff. It was beautiful. The whole thing was amazing. But the cities were a little bit crazy. Like even like Sao Paulo. Like, if you go through Sao Paulo, it's kind of dangerous.
On our first day camera gear, on our first day filming in Rio de Janeiro, we were taking this cable car over these favelas, and we saw a gunfight with the police.
No.
Yeah.
You were in a cable car, like.
Yeah.
So it goes over the favelas.
Yeah. So in some
like a bird's eye view of a gunfight
on day one.
What? Epic.
It was crazy. Like, because we were all kind of on edge. Like, okay, we got camera gear. We had all the permits and stuff like that. We had a guide with us, but it was but we were like,
guard. Did you have a security team? Did you have bulletproof vehicles?
No, we can't afford shit like that. We're just go out and wing it.
Wow.
But yeah, that first day in Rio was an eye opener. But I loved Manaus. I loved the whole Amazon region, and it was pretty special. But yeah, the cities are dangerous. It can be a real problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Brazil's amazing. Like, it's so beautiful there. And people are so nice.
Yeah. Have you ever shot for anyone super famous?
Yeah.
Can you talk about it, or is there an NDA attached?
No, I have a lot of NDAs, but usually stuff in the past year you're allowed to talk about. They've long forgotten you.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I remember, I think the most famous guy I ever shot was Jack Ma, who runs the company Alibaba in China, which is like with a big e-commerce company. And he was always in the news. So we ended up going to visit him and doing portraits and interviews with him all the time. And I think I shot him like 5 or 6 times over the years.
Oh, yeah.
And that was pretty epic. Like, he's worth like,
people knew him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like $80 billion or something like that, or $100 billion now.
Oh my God. I shot for some billionaire in Singapore. His daughter was a billionaire. She married this guy, Van Ness. He's like a pop star in I think Taiwan, like a big name. So when I landed in the airport, I remember there was like the big ads on the walls when you're walking through the airport. They were pictures of him with some watch company. Like, I don't know, like, it was him, and I was like, oh man, this guy's like legit. I didn't realize how famous he was.
Yeah.
Here in Singapore and in Taiwan.
And did you get to shoot his wedding?
Yeah, I shot his wedding.
Oh wow.
Yeah. That wedding led to a few more pretty big weddings in Singapore as well.
And they'd fly you from LA to Singapore with all your gear just to shoot a wedding.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like, there's not any good. I love that though. Like, once people get the idea that you're the guy, it doesn't matter if there's anyone local nearby. It's like
money.
No.
Like you want the guy. You don't want like some local, like it's pretty amazing, mind blowing. Like the amount of money people spend on their wedding. Like the last one I just did, I think they spent like $3.5 million on their wedding.
Are you serious? Dollars, U.S. dollars. Remember when $3 million US used to be like a lot of money?
Yeah, exactly. It was like, that would have been a big deal like 20 years ago. I shot a 3.5. I shot the wedding. It was $10 million, and this is back before all the inflation. So, it's like that'd be like 20 million today.
It's true, but before the U.S. government just started sending $100 billion every couple months to Ukraine and Israel and all this other shit, just printing. Yeah,
it's a form of tax.
It really is.
Yeah,
it really is. It's hard. Yeah, I mean, how have you navigated running a business in Southern California with all the taxes? Like, are there any tax breaks? So, first of all, I'm new here.
Oh,
so I've only been here for like 8 months.
Okay,
so I don't really know what's going on. And I have like a O1 visa, so it's like a special talent visa, so I can work here, but I haven't really worked much yet, but it's coming. But like, how do you manage the taxes in California, which are famously high, as an entrepreneur? Like, how do you
pay
them? No, but are there any breaks?
Taxes. Well, kids give you breaks, and like property tax insurance is a break, and your write-offs, all your write-offs. As a photographer, you can write off a lot, like a lot of stuff, because you use so many. Like, I got into this business because of the cool toys I get to buy. Cameras, lenses,
motorcycles.
My motorcycle is look, I commuted here, right? To me, this is marketing. Like I'm on air, hopefully someone will find me and hire me,
Yeah. Yeah.
So everything, anywhere,
right? Hire you for my 6th wedding.
Yeah. But motorcycles are like great scouting vehicles, I need them to scout locations. I shoot a lot of bridal fashion, and I like to shoot it in nature. So we'll go scout locations. So each morning we'll be looking for a new location.
Oh, I saw some of that on your Instagram, by the way. That was beautiful. Like you took them out into the forest, and I don't know if they were like redwoods or whatever, but there were all these beautiful bridal dresses, and the girls are just walking around in nature.
Yeah,
that was stunning. It's a really nice little series.
Thanks. You saw the sequoias, right?
The sequoias, yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks. So the bridal campaigns are fun because you get to kind of like, it's like your TV show. You get to like produce something, and it's like your baby. Like you come up with a concept, you come up with a location, you hire the models. So a lot of my bridal clients are like that. They just kind of give me the budget and run with it. But yeah, so almost everything I like to do, I build my business around it. So like rock climbing, I'll just make sure I'm like, all my rock climbing is training for shooting in nature, and I also have like kind of a passion for shooting clients, like real clients in nature. I just feel like that's kind of my jam. Like I love being outside, and my clients like beautiful backdrops. So
we should all be spending more time in nature.
Yeah. So almost everything I love, which is about the outdoors, and all the toys I buy for the outdoors are business toys. So a lot of write-offs, legal write-offs, legal loopholes.
That's good though.
And I just make sure I'm just using it for business, Yeah.
That's good though. You haven't had to like move to Montana or Wyoming or Seattle or some, one of these, or Austin, Texas. Everyone's going to Texas these days. Like that's a real movement. That's a real thing.
I feel like it's humid and hot. I feel like every time I've been to Texas, I'm like, I want to go home. Like I like, the people and everything. I just feel like it's humid. I like, if I'm going to live in humidity, it's going to be like North Shore of Oahu. Like I'm going to live where I can surf and just like be in my trunks and barefoot all day. If it's going to be humid, I don't want to be somewhere where I have to dress up or wear clothes and then sweat through them.
Texas is a strange beast, actually. I love it. I have one memory from Texas. I did my motorcycle trip in Brazil. I did with BMW, so they sponsored me. And then part of the deal was I had to do
on the GS.
Yeah, 800 GS, and it was fucking hilarious because they gave me the bike in Rio, and I picked it up, and the people were super sweet, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you're supposed to come and pick up this bike." I'm like, "Yep, come pick up the bike. I get some gear as well." And then like 60 days later, I brought this motorcycle back, and it was fucking destroyed. Yeah. But they knew there was gonna like the show's called Tough Rides, and then they knew I was going through the Amazon, so it was
If your show's gonna be called Tough Rides, they better have a tough ride for you. They better expect it to.
But I just remember the look on this poor girl's face when I came rolling back in on that bike, because it was just fucked up, I was a month in the Amazon mud, going through.
It is not a friend of a motorcycle.
And it was that like orange mud, and it just cakes. It cakes to the bottom of the bike, and it cakes to the side, and then you don't get enough like airflow, and then it overheats, and almost
basically totaled the bike. So they destroyed it.
This poor girl was like, I remember bringing it back to reception, being like, I'm the guy from BMW headquarters. I borrowed the bike. I'm just returning it. And she's like, what am I supposed to do with this? And I'm like, I don't know. But I took some photos of it and I sent it to headquarters, right? I'm like, you might have to call them to explain like that the bike doesn't look too good anymore. And but it worked out well, and I think they were happy with the show. But then I went to Texas to do a talk, and I was in Denton, Texas, which is like, I guess, an hour north of Dallas. And I was there, and like 150 people came out to this dealership with the BMW bikes, and then they set up a little screen, and I showed some video, did a talk, loved it, met some super nice guy. But every single guy who was there had an open carry handgun in their waist belt.
Really?
And I was like, fuck, I've never seen that before. That is wild. And
like a 57 or like a Glock?
Everything. Like, yeah, like, they didn't like take them out and show them to each other. But like you could see like some of them were, more Glock looking, and some of them were more, with the wheel, and it's it was wild, like just to see that many guns around. Because at this time I was living in China, and there were no guns in China. Yeah.
Are there guns in Canada?
Yeah, there's actually more guns per capita in Canada than in the United States.
Are you serious?
Yeah, but we just don't have the deaths because we actually use them all for hunting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just
that's the trick.
Just animal deaths.
Yeah. It's strange. Yeah, people always are like, how come Canada doesn't have more shooting deaths? And it's starting to happen, actually. There's like a lot more shootings in Toronto now and stuff. A lot more homeless, a lot more crime since COVID, especially.
Whenever you get people packed together really packed together, it becomes dog eat dog. It's like, I don't think it's right. I feel like, the big cities and stuff, just like, I like to be on the outskirts.
Yeah.
Spaced out a little bit, have a little bit.
Is that what you've got in Orange County?
Yeah, it's a little more spread out.
Yeah.
I mean, we're still like, property lines next to neighbors, but the roads are a little wider. There's trees. I don't know. There's enough it feels like there's more to go around.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I'm in a big city, I just feel like the mentality is a little bit different. Like New York, I'm in New York a lot for work, and it's like people don't hold the door for you. There's just too many people. It's like, to survive, you don't have. If you held the door for someone, you would have to be there all day while everyone walked through,
mm-hmm.
right? And then at some point, you gotta let the door fly into someone's face, right? So you just don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I mean, I met some New Yorkers that said I hold the door for people, but I've never experienced it. When I'm in New York, it's dog eat dog. It's like you're on your own, and the tougher you are, the more people respect you. Like the meaner you are, the more people respect you there. And I'm like this nice guy from Orange County. I'm just like really sweet to people, and like I look people in the eyes and say hi to them, and they look at me like I'm just an idiot, like in New York.
Yeah, that's what got me out of Shanghai. So Shanghai is like 35 million people, 30 million people, and living there was too much. And that's when I started doing the hiking trips and getting out of the city and going out into the wild, right? Like whether I was teaching or even when I was married and things like that, like I was constantly kind of going back to the mountains, going back to nature, just to get out of the city, just to live, just to feel.
And people that live in these cities, like even my friends who live in LA, I'm just like, why?
Yeah.
Well, you live in the Beverly Hills. It's kind of the nicer area of LA. So, but I'm like, you just go a few blocks and it's like stress for me. It's like anxiety, and I don't know, too many people, and everyone's fighting for the road space, and people are mad. It's the traffic, and
I just don't go anywhere. That's my trick. Yeah,
stay
in the neighborhood, but I don't drive either. Like we have a car, but like we don't go anywhere. Like we walk everywhere. Try to walk as much as we can. Takes the stress out of everything, right? And you just leave earlier and walk, and you don't have to watch other people drive terribly and cut you off. It totally changes the mentality.
Yeah,
and I love that. But I promise you, in like 2 or 3 years, I'll be living in Wyoming or Montana.
Yeah.
Thing
I've been there once, and I remember.
Where'd you stay? there's two sides to Shanghai. There's the east side and the west side. Pudong, which is the new area, and Puxi, which is the old area. Do you remember?
I wouldn't even know.
Yeah.
I flew in there I think I was there for 2 nights. It was like a tour that I did with an album company.
Oh.
And I thought they were in Japan. I thought they were based in Japan. And then when we flew to Japan, they're like, oh, by the way, we're making a little trip to Shanghai to see the factory. I'm like, I thought these albums were made in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, no, they're actually made in Shanghai, but we don't tell anybody. So I've been selling it to my clients saying they're Japanese, like this is all made in Japan by hand.
Yeah.
They were made in Shanghai by Chinese by hand. But they were beautiful albums. Anyway, so they flew me there for like 2 nights. And I just remember it was raining and we were on the freeway in this nice Mercedes-Benz that supposedly was like, $400,000. If you want a Mercedes-Benz in Shanghai, it's like $400,000.
Yeah, if you want a Maybach or something like that, they're quite nice. So when you buy a car in China and you buy an international brand, you pay 100% luxury tax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Singapore's got a special thing, right? Like
Singapore is even more expensive. So in Singapore, the cars aren't the expensive thing; it's the license plate.
Yeah, license.
So in Singapore, you can pay like $100,000 US just to get a license plate for a Honda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you might as well buy a nice car if you're gonna have a car, right? You might as well just like.
Well, that's the thing. Like that's how you keep. That's why the traffic in Singapore is not that big a deal, right? Because people can't even afford to have a car, and because they can't afford the license plate. So so in Asia, that's why a lot of people have like motorcycles and scooters, and bicycles. Because I mean, Shanghai, like when I first went to Shanghai and Beijing in 2001, like there were very few cars. Like it was all bicycles. And when I had friends that went to China in the 90s, and they were like there were no cars, like. There were just roads of like 10 lanes of just bicycles.
Yeah.
Of people going back and forth to work, picking up kids. Like they just lived on them, even in the winter, even in the rain. And it didn't matter. And there's something really sweet about that. And then I was there during the car revolution. So like I remember when General Motors started selling cars in China, Volkswagen was the first big one that sold cars. And then I remember the electric cars started to come and, like Tesla really back in the day, and then BYD, which is the Chinese car company that's also making electric cars. Then Warren Buffett invested. Then we did a story on them for the New York Times when Warren Buffett invested in BYD. I think Berkshire Hathaway owns like 20% of BYD, which is the big Chinese conglomerate that makes electric vehicles. So like they just pushed so far, so fast on cars. It was crazy. It became way too much.
I just have this vivid memory of like being on the freeway and it's raining and like this truck goes by and there's like a bunch of people in the back of the truck just getting soaked. And I'm in this Mercedes just looking at them like, oh my gosh, poor guys that are getting soaked. And then this like little moped like passes us on the freeway and they're like just soaking wet. And they're on these little mopeds and I don't know, just a lot of cars. And just to me, I don't know, it's a lot of people and just seemed kind of miserable. But there was some cool stuff there too.
I mean, just the people who made money in Shanghai, they made billions. Like there's just the Chinese market was so impressive, and people just mastered it. Like cell phone companies, I just remember, and it was all just Shanghai. Like it just boomed when I was there. It was incredible city.
Well, I have to say that when I went to the factory, I was really impressed because like I thought these books must have been made by machines because they were like perfect. I mean, like picture like photos cut into mats, right? And the mats. The photos fit flush in the mats where it looked almost like it was printed on the page, but they're hand cut to fit perfectly in these mats. And they're like, it looks like some kind of template, like you would see like in Photoshop or you drag images around, but it was all each individual photos, different sizes, like laid out in these designs with different like accenting papers and different textures and all like laminated on pages. Like the books are amazing. But then when I went to the factory, I was expecting like, these have to be done by machines. There's no way these are handmade. There's just no way because they were just too straight. Everything was just too perfect. And I went there and they were literally people with X-Acto knives, like not even like a ruler, just cutting these photos and like somehow making them in these mats with you didn't see cut marks on the mats, but they somehow got them to fit. I'm sure there's a technique to it that made it easier, but I didn't understand it. And there's just rows and rows of these long tables with people. There's no machines there at all.
Amazing.
The printer was the only machine. Yeah. Everything was literally made by hand. And I was like, just mind blown. I was just like, what the heck? How are these people so good at doing this? And then they talked about the work ethic, like they would all be early. If you weren't early, you were late. And they'd all have to, because they have to get in line to clock in. Mm-hmm. And the last person to clock in was like right at the deadline to clock in. Otherwise, you didn't get paid or something. Mm-hmm. And some of them like slept there. They had like places there for them to sleep.
Did you witness the after lunch nap?
No.
That's the best. So most of the factories in China and a lot of even the offices and stuff like that, staff will sleep at their desk after lunch. So they'll go out and they'll have their lunch with their friends, and then they'll come back and have like a little half-hour cat nap before they get back to work. So yeah, so you'll see
little siesta.
yeah. So there's this Bloomberg journalist. His name is Ashley Vance. He's a very, very funny guy. So he has his own TV show called Hello World, and he went to China, Shenzhen, China, which is in the south near Hong Kong, and he went to a factory that was making, I think, cell phones, and all of the staff had chairs like I do, like with a back, but they all lay flat, and then the feet kick out too. So they would work at their desks all day, and then they would eat lunch, and then they would put the chair back, and then they would turn into like a bed, and then they would have like a little 30-minute nap after lunch.
Time or be different times?
I think they staggered it a little bit, but yeah, it's a super common practice, and it was very funny to see.
That was crazy.
A whole office of people just sleeping.
I remember playing basketball with them. Like we went outside and we had a full on game. Like I was like the tallest guy.
Yeah.
Like I was like dunking on them and stuff.
I think if I had played basketball 10 years later, I think I could have maybe played in the CBA, in the Chinese league.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. Because it was just getting going when I went there, and it was still pretty messed up. Each team could have one foreign player. Actually, I did a story about a basketball player from the U.S. who was playing in Shenyang, the one city in kind of western China, and he hated it, but he was a super sweet guy. We spent a couple days together. But I think like because Allen Iverson played there for a bit, and
they have money, right?
They do and they don't. Like they have money, but they don't really spread it around too much. But who was there was one player that became super famous, one American player that really tore it up in China and played forever. He was a point guard, but I can't remember his name. But he, I think he might even still be there and is playing in his 40s. But he really kind of bought in and ended up playing in Beijing. And I always thought, like, because I went to a couple games, and like Yao Ming started playing in the CBA, and then he moved to the NBA and played for Houston, and then he went back and bought a CBA team, and we went and did a story once about the team he bought, the Shanghai Sharks, which was one of the bigger clubs. And the quality of play was good, but it wasn't like beyond the collegiate level here. So I always thought like that would have been cool to go to China to play basketball, but I think it was a bit before my time, and I think my mind was completely somewhere else, but it would have been fun.
Yeah. Like pro ball.
Yeah.
Make money. Like playing basketball?
Well, the thing is, like, so like I know when I graduated university in 2001, like I had friends that played on other teams that were better than me, and like one of them went to New Zealand to play, one of them went to Denmark, one guy went to Spain, but they didn't make money. Like they made maybe like a teacher's salary. Like they were making like maybe $50,000 a year, maybe $60,000 a year, but they were
full-time gig though. They had to practice and do everything like just like NBA.
Yeah. The only good thing is like this, it wasn't like for 12 months. It was like for 6 or 8 months. So you would make like that salary, but it would be condensed, but it was intense, and you were traveling and stuff like that. So it was a big deal, but at the end it wasn't enough money to be away from their families. Some of them like had girlfriends or wives, and they were starting to like
buy like AAA kind of thing or AA baseball.
Yeah. It's a hard life, I think. Yeah. So what have you got coming up in the next like 6 to 12 months? Are you going to become a war photographer randomly and start traveling through Syria? And
is there going to be, like anything big coming that I don't know about? Because I'm kind of in my bubble here.
Well, I mean, yeah, we got Ukraine these days. So
I've always thought it'd be cool to be a war photographer.
Yeah. That's why I brought it up, because everyone has this idea.
Have you ever done it?
I've never done it. There was an opportunity for me in like 2005 or 6. The New York Times asked me if I wanted to go to Iraq. I said no. A lot of photographers want to do it because the salaries are way higher, because you get like danger pay.
Yeah.
But it's I don't know. It's not really worth it, I don't think. But the closest I got to it, I was in May 2008. There was a massive earthquake in China. And like hundreds of thousands of people died, although the government said there were only 88,000 people who died, but it was way off.
Really?
But yeah, it was a massive earthquake, and hundreds of thousands of people died.
2008?
Yeah, just before the Olympics.
Wow.
And it was crazy. So I went out there, and we were like, entire villages were destroyed, villages with hundreds of thousands of people, and they were completely collapsed and things like that. And we were there, and there were still aftershocks, and buildings were kind of falling down around us. So, and I just saw dead bodies everywhere for like 2 weeks. And I was just like, that's too much for me. Like, it's not really what I'm up for or what I can handle. And it was like, it seriously affected me for a few months afterwards. And I was just like, I could never work in a war zone.
How did it affect you?
Yeah, you just see all these visions again and again, like people just dragging bodies out of buildings and like, and you know, bloated bodies that had been left in places and for days, and the smell, like I can just still remember the smell. And my life wasn't really even in danger, but it was enough to like really affect me. So I just was like, I can't do more than that. I don't think I could be like shot at and still do my job properly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My dad was in Vietnam, and I feel like, you know, even just two years or whatever affected the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Like, he still has PTSD. Like, I remember taking him to see a movie. I think it was Saving Private Ryan.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah.
Realized it was a bad idea at the time, but I looked over at him and like he was like frozen in shock.
Yeah.
And we had to leave.
Oh.
But I think he saw his best friend get shot in the head in front of him. He was on a PBR boat, and his buddy was on the bow of the boat, and he witnessed that and like changed his life, you know, forever.
Mm-hmm.
Like all kinds of depression and like the survivor's guilt and things like that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I can imagine. I think I would do well in that kind of situation. I don't know, because I kind of thrive on adrenaline and I like being in dangerous places, but I don't know how it would.
Yeah. I've had a few combat vets on the show, on the podcast. And the one I'm closest with, Jason, because we stay in touch quite a bit. Yeah, he had a really tough time coming back from Iraq and finding purpose again, right? And that's the hardest thing. And it's funny too, because he went to Iraq. He had a very interesting trip, another complete tangent for us today. But he had a really interesting journey where he went to Iraq, and when he was at the airport flying to Germany before they would take their military transport into Iraq, they would fly commercial, right? They would fly like United. He was in Virginia, I guess, so they would fly like DC to Frankfurt, right? And so he was telling me like they would go through the airport, and when he left for the war, people were standing up in the airport clapping them as they went through the airport. People were patting them on the backs, being like, "Go, you know, you guys are amazing, you know," and all this stuff. And then but when he came back, people were shitting on them like, "This war is garbage. What's America doing there? You're part of the problem." Like, he said the tone completely shifted, and he was only there for like 3 or 4 years off and on, right? And he said that by the end of it, he just said he was so dejected because they were like risking their lives, and they were like trying to do the right thing. And obviously the politicians were playing their own games.
Yeah.
But he was just a foot soldier, right? Like, he wasn't like managing, you know, he wasn't a 4-star general or 5-star general or whatever. And he was just like, it was so hurtful for him the way the public turned on the war and made the soldiers part of the problem.
Yeah.
And it was something like he really never still got over. His podcast is like number 20 something or whatever. I'll send you the link. It's pretty heartbreaking. But he, you know what he did is he used endurance sports to get over it. So now he runs like ultra marathons, and he's doing like these 150-mile runs. He's like he does these Spartan races, like the obstacle courses. He's a personal trainer. He's just turned it all around and put it into his fitness and stuff like that. But he still has issues that he's trying to work through. And he almost took his own life at one stage. So he talks all about it. It's fucked up. Like, I just think
big problem. You know, like there's a lot of suicide, a lot of like, I don't know what it'd be like. It's kind of like you talk about just traveling and being out and then coming home, and then, you know, it's almost like, what am I doing here? Or like when you've been in a third world country or been on this crazy adventure, and then you come back to real life, and almost like the comforts and just like the things that in America, the things that don't really matter are like amplified like they matter. And like, you know, with social media and stuff, it's like taking a picture of your food, you know, like shit. Yeah, it's just like you come back from an experience like that, or coming back from I think it was Uganda. When I came back, my phone was blowing up because one of my teams was out on a shoot when I was gone, and it was like one of the Kardashians or something, and it was like an event that they were at. My phone was blowing up because they didn't get the right shot of one of the Kardashians, and she was like eating sushi at a table, and she had her bodyguard blocking, they didn't pay her enough. The publicist didn't pay her enough to get photos taken. And basically I got thrown under the bus. My team got thrown under the bus, and they just literally could not get a shot. They were supposed to be taking portraits of her, and they didn't get paid enough. So they were trying to play paparazzi, and we're not paparazzis, you know. I think I'm a pretty good paparazzi, but I'm not a professional paparazzi, you know. So they don't know all the tricks to get a shot. Anyways, all this stuff was coming to my phone, and I just heard being like, these people are a bunch of idiots. Like, have they ever been outside of the country, you know? Like, do they know anything about real life? I don't know. I just felt so like jaded from, I didn't even respond to any of it. And when I did get on the phone, I just basically like burned a bridge with the publicist and never worked with her again. And I was just like, what the heck?
The trivial problems. I think one of the things that I noticed is that the more time I spent out filming in nature and being off the grid, the less impressed I was by anything in the cities. Like, people still ask me today, like, you know, why don't you get a nice car, or, you know, why don't you wear different like, nothing in the city interests me at all. Like, you could walk me down, you could give me a bag of cash and walk me down Rodeo Drive, and I wouldn't spend a dime. There's nothing there I want. Like, everything I want is elsewhere, and it's in the middle of nowhere, far away from all of these people. And I've always lived like that, and I just felt like that became evidently clear once I would go, like Aconcagua, right? Highest mountain in South America, highest mountain in the Americas. It's in Argentina. It's 24,000 feet, 7,000 meters. Spent 21 days climbing it. We summited, filmed a beautiful episode of TV. All my crew and I were safe. You know, came out of that feeling like an absolute fucking hero. Get back home, depressed, angry, sad. My wife at the time is angry at me because I don't want to go out for dinner with her and her friends, because I'm jet lagged and fucking still sunburned from the mountain, and like going out with her friends was like the last thing I wanted to do. And it just
heal.
Yeah, it just turns you into it enlightens you, but it also, when you come back, it turns you into some shitty person that doesn't want to do anything. Because
that's kind of the catch-22
yeah,
of living an adventurous life. Like, the alternative is sitting on a couch and being the most boring person in the world. But when you actually go out and live, then everybody else seems boring to you. So then you go to a party and you're just like, get me out of here. I want to go back out. I want to go back to Brazil, ride motorcycles, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, I don't know. It's hard.
Well, that's why all these actors have so much depression. Like, because being on a film set for 3 months or 6 months, doing what you love to do, working with creative people, is such a high that when you come out of that job and you don't have another job, it's like, how do I mask that? How do I
relate to anybody?
Yeah, you can't.
I think about climbing El Cap. Like, that's one of my dreams, is to climb El Cap. And I think about that, like, it would be so cool to be at a party and be the only guy in the room that climbed El Cap, you know?
Mm-hmm.
My luck is to be like 6 other people that, you know, did it free solo or something. But like,
Alex Honnold shows up out of nowhere. He's like, what was your story?
Yeah. But honestly, like, going to a party after climbing El Cap is probably the worst thing you probably do. Like, you be there and just wish you weren't there.
Yeah.
Because nothing else seems like, you can't get the same adrenaline rush from a party as you can from El Cap, you know?
It really is a catch-22, because in this town, everyone wants to network, right? So like, people are like, oh, you got to come out for dinner, you got to come out for drinks and all this stuff. I was like, no, like, it's just like, I just want to make my stuff out there and then come back here and live in Southern California where the sunshine is, right? And just kind of ignore life here. Because a lot of my friends were like, oh my God, why'd you move to LA? Like, you should be in some far-flung part of the world. And I'm like, oh, the weather's great here, and people I know are nice, and I get to do the podcast. And one of the reasons why I'm living here in this part of town is because it's so easy for people to come and see me. So I didn't want to be out in the middle of nowhere and then have people say no to me because they had to travel too far, right? So at least here I'm quite central. And but I don't want anything in this city. Like, you know, I'm getting ready. Actually, I'm getting ready to do Tough Rides Argentina. That's going to be the next one. So I leave in October. So October, November, we'll be doing the motorcycle trip all around Argentina for 2 months. So that'll be, but it's taken years to get back after COVID. What was it like? Here's a question. What was it like for you when COVID hit?
It hit, and the phone started ringing, and clients started canceling on me.
Mm-hmm.
I had like shoots booked, fashion shoots booked out of state, you know, like in different areas, and one after the other, I just became basically not homeless. I was still unemployed. I became unemployed, and I was just like, wow,
mm-hmm.
that could happen. I didn't realize that could happen.
Yeah.
Like, you work your whole career, and then you can be like you can just basically like everything goes to crap in like 2 days or 3 days. It just felt like it all happened within a period of a week.
Was there any government relief?
Yeah, but nothing. It was not even enough to pay my bills.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you basically have to like, you know, still try to work and try to find those clients that are willing to pay you and take whatever you can get from the government handouts, you know. And we got by, you know, but I was still trying to work.
How long was it before like work came back where you could consider yourself to be busy again?
I don't think I'm as busy now as I was before COVID, you know.
I haven't made TV since 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a lot of my travel stuff just hasn't come back.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird.
Yeah. I like to say that COVID killed freelancing. Like, because so like I had a production company. I made my own TV shows, right? So I had about 6 or 8 wonderfully talented people working for me. So I had 2 editors. I had a music composer. I had an editor. I had all these people, camera guys, camera operators that I worked with the same people forever. So I had all these people working with me, and then all of a sudden I couldn't pay them anymore. We couldn't make anything. So I had to kind of let them all go. Some of them were freelance, but they worked for me full time. But some of them I was paying a salary, and they all had to go and get like shitty fucking jobs and full-time jobs just to survive, right?
Yeah.
And none of them have been able to come back into like the work that they really want to do, even after 4 years. And it's bad because they were freelancing, they were having fun, traveling the world, and now they're stuck doing some dead-end job that they fucking hate for like half the money that I used to pay them, and it just makes no sense.
Yeah, no. I feel like I stuck it out, and enough people went to get jobs, and it, even though I didn't have as much work, there was less competition.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
So I made ends meet and got through it, and I've been kind of on the rebound since, like getting more and more gigs, but I also had savings. A lot of people don't have savings. I was fortunate enough to have put money aside and had kind of a fund there that I could tap into. And, I try to do that so that I'm not desperate for work, so that clients don't smell desperation from me when I'm in a sales meeting.
That's the worst.
Yeah. Like that, I learned that the hard way for many years, and then I realized that, look, if I just have money in the bank, and I'm just smart about my finances, then no one's going to smell fear on me and try to take advantage of me or try to get me for cheaper or try to play hardball with me and, ghost me until I get desperate and call them back and do it for the price that they want, which I still do sometimes. I'm still victim of that,
Yeah.
Because I'm still looking for a job every week. But when there's money in the account, it makes it a lot easier to say no. And people sometimes come back and hire you anyways for the original price,
It's crazy though, 4 years later, you still don't feel like you're back at the same level of busyness that you were before.
No. Yeah. And I don't know if sometimes I think, well, you just got comfortable, you had a little taste of not being busy and you liked it. So you haven't really, I don't know if I've gone full force back, pursuing work, it's kind of I enjoyed the time off and I got close with my family and I kind of wanted to keep it that way.
Yeah.
So
who's your hate monger now? Who's the one who's doubting you, who you're trying to fight against? I think you told me your mom played that pivotal role while she was still with us, with you, and when she passed, you could feel like maybe you took your foot off the gas. So I'm it's 2024. Who's going to be the next champion in your brain that's going to push you to be, the asshole that you need to be to get back to being busy?
Yeah, honestly, sometimes I wonder if someone was like that in my life, if it would light the fire but then I think maybe I'm just older and wiser, and I don't want that. I've been there and done that, and I don't think I really want that. I actually want to go the other direction. I obviously we need to make money and we need to provide for our families and whatnot, but I'm just doing everything I can to set myself up so that I don't need to work, so that I can just work when I want to and take jobs when I want to and get the best jobs for the highest pay and pick and choose the jobs that I want. That's what I'm working towards. And yeah, I don't know if I want to be busy or at the grind. I just working all the time, because I didn't like that. And I think the biggest component to that is my kids are getting older, and one of my kids moved out. He's in the Air Force. He lives in Europe. And it's like, I never expected him to leave at the age of 20. I thought he was going to be in my house longer. So that I get a little taste of like, wow, my kids are growing up and they could, fly the nest earlier than I thought. And I have 3 kids left in my house, and I'm scared to like be away from them too long.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the busier you get with work, it's easier just to like, time speeds up and the time that you have with them is less. And for me, that's like scary.
Yeah, because if you spend the next 3 to 5 years grinding it out, you'll miss them. And then by the time they're gone, they're gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to wait until they're moved out. And when my wife could then, if my kids are moved out and kind of living their lives, self-sustained, then my wife could now travel with me again, because that's what it was like before we had kids. She would go with me to all my gigs, and we had that thing together,
That's great. And then you'll be in the North Shore of Oahu.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, she'll be able to travel with me, and then I'll feel less guilty pursuing work, pursuing like getting busy again. And I think there'll be a period of time, I kind of predict that my 50s, maybe mid 50s, I'll be like pushing hard for like 10 years again and doing big jobs, and probably have 2 or 3 different careers going, doing different things and making a ton of money and setting myself up for the future. Whereas right now I'm like hesitant to pursue anything really like with full speed, because I don't want to miss out on these few years I have left with my kids before they move out. So that's what's, I think, holding me back, and for good reason. I think COVID kind of woke me up a little bit.
Yeah.
But I was always on that track, like once the kids were born, to try to spend more time with them. That was the goal. That's why I worked those 10 years before the kids even were born, so I could just like have, higher paying jobs and more time with them.
The comment about you and your wife traveling well for your work is very interesting to me, because for me, I'm a fucking asshole when I'm working. So my guys love me and they know that I'm nice and whatever, but it's pretty intense because I'm producing and directing and hosting, right? So like, I mean, you're producing, you're directing, and you're shooting, and you're managing all these people. So like for me, I know that if I'm really working in the middle of what I'm doing, I'm terrible to be around a significant other or a wife or a spouse, because I just don't have time for that shit. Right. And I always find it funny, like people who get into these creative paths and avenues, and the people who like travel with them and like think that there's going to be romance or like time to have like in-depth conversations about life. No.
Yeah, it's true. That's so true. Yeah. Like my wife wanted to do that Lake Como wedding with me, and she wanted to go so bad, and I was like, I'm just gonna be working. So
yeah, just give her a credit card
to Lake Como another time. And everyone's like, you need to bring your wife. Like, she needs to see Lake Como. It's so romantic. I'm like, I'm not gonna be thinking about romance when I'm shooting 5 days straight, like stressed out, like working.
It's hard to find that balance, especially when you're traveling.
Yeah, it is. We managed it in the early days, but she was my full-time assistant. Like, she shot with me.
Oh.
And I think we did well together. I don't remember, but you kind of remember the best times. You don't really remember the worst. I'm sure we had our moments.
The past always has rose-colored glasses.
Yeah. I'm probably glad when she started having babies and wanted to stay home. I do remember when she got pregnant for the first time, because she was in the office all the time. And there was a lot of like conflict, because I wanted to buy a new MacBook Pro and she would be like, you can't spend that money. And so there'd be a lot of fighting about some money stuff. And then once she got pregnant and was like raising the kids, I could just make decisions. I could just buy stuff.
Yeah.
Could buy stuff and then deal with not paying for it, But
yeah. That's funny though. The mentality shifted for her right away.
Oh yeah. The minute she found out she was pregnant, she was on babynames.com, like looking at baby names, and she was not thinking about any work.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember my employee Dave at the time, he's like, Mike, like, you need to get her out of the office. She's not working. You need to just get her out. And I was like, okay.
That's epic.
Yeah. And so she was at home and she was becoming a mom, like reading and planning and, getting the house ready and stuff. And that was kind of how it was ever since. She has her own career now. She's actually like a very talented voice teacher, and she's done a ton of like Disney movies and Warner Brothers movies and
amazing
soundtrack stuff. And yeah, so now she's got a constant stream of little girls coming to her house learning how to sing. And and she raised 4 kids, which is amazing. So,
and put up with you.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I say I was trying to get her out of the office, it was really just like, I think, two bosses in the office is hard.
Yeah. There needs to be hierarchy.
Wife is like kind of your equal, like, so. I never laid down the law like my decision is final. Like, don't argue with me. I never did that early in my marriage, and for good reason, because I don't know if we would still be married.
Yeah. Well, hey, you're still happily married, so I'm glad you didn't do that. Yeah. Well, that's no joke. 24 years, that's a long time. Yeah. No joke. So anything else you want to talk about, or are we good? I mean, fuck, you're a jiu-jitsu champion. I love how we opened that.
I mean, I hope that, I think like your career is really, really interesting to me. And, I hope that I can somehow like stay in touch with you and like maybe learn and go out with you and adventure or something. Like maybe put my photo skills, and I also know how to do video now too. So if you need a cameraman or whatever, but to be able to like, probably, how many languages do you know? I feel like you probably know a couple at least.
No, I'm terrible with languages, sadly. Yeah. So just a little bit of Chinese and English. Yeah.
But how long did you live in China?
18 years, and my ex-wife was
Chinese.
No, not even close. No, my ex-wife's English was excellent.
You only had English-speaking friends there?
I had some Chinese-speaking friends, but they all spoke really excellent English. So I was pretty sheltered in a bubble, and but I would go out into the middle of China by myself, and I could get around. Yeah. Like I could talk to people and order food and take buses and taxis and trains.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. You seem like a resource for the kind of life that I hope to live.
Yeah,
So. Yeah, hopefully I can tap into that.
Absolutely, we can definitely stay in touch and do this again anytime. Like, and I'm happy to answer questions and have a drink or whatever needs to be done. So, but yeah, it's fun talking about like old trips and planning new trips, and I think if you're not trying to take over the world, or you're not building your own conglomerate of a company, like you want to travel, you want to see things, and you want to spend time in other parts of the world learning and things like that. And I think that that's kind of what makes life worth living. And I actually think, and I've said this so many times on this podcast, the United States would be such a kinder and more wonderful country if at 18, when everyone's finished high school, assuming everyone finishes high school, everyone gets a gap year.
Yeah.
Mandatory, out of the United States, gap year. And we can get Warren Buffett or one of these Google fucking guys to pay for it or whatever, but set up a goddamn trust fund and just put every kid that graduates high school gets 10 grand or 15 grand to travel the world for a year and I tell you, when they come back, they will be a humbler, kinder version of themselves.
Yeah, I took my oldest son, I took him to Amazon, I took him to Uganda, Tanzania. He's been to Mexico doing house builds. We're doing one this weekend, actually.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. But I think because of all that, that's what made him comfortable joining the military and living overseas right now. And it's just like, he kind of got a bug for it. Like, he's my first, I did not expect him to leave so quickly, but he's like a man, like completely confident to go out on his own and just travel and stuff. And I don't know, it's kind of cool. So I highly recommend any parents listening that they travel abroad with their kids. And I don't know if Warren Buffett should pay for it, but
no, he should.
Parents should definitely make it a priority, even over college, like, or at least like a gap year, like something right after high school, just so people can find themselves, maybe see a little bit more of the world and have a broader understanding of this world before they jump into like a lifelong decision, like a career or
or engineering.
Yeah.
No, it's true. Because I have a production company, and I would always hire someone who has a great attitude, who's traveled the world, than someone who went to like USC and did like film studies. Like, I don't give a fuck about that. Like, I can teach you how to use a camera. I can teach you how to use an SLR with a Rode mic or a gimbal, and whatever. And you can follow me around and we'll work on it together. But as long as you have the right attitude and you feel comfortable traveling, this is the most important thing.
For sure. Yeah.
We should do this again. We'll have a few chats like this.
Oh, heck.
But I just want to say, you started off epic by telling me that just, 48 hours ago, 72 hours ago, you won the Jiu-Jitsu Masters 4 championship in Vegas. And you are the national champion in your age category.
Yeah. And I beat the number one dude. He's ranked he had 600 points. And to put that into perspective, like to win the worlds, you get 15 points or something like that, maybe more, maybe 20 points. So this guy's been traveling and competing in every single thing this year and winning it all.
And you put him down.
I took him down. and then he didn't want to get on the podium. I had like I wanted to get a picture with him, me higher up and him lower.
Oh, he's a bad
Just
sport.
prove it, just to have proof that I beat it. I don't know. I didn't know this guy before the date, but lots of people know him, I guess.
Yeah.
But I wanted a picture with him, and he was nowhere to be found. I had to go find him, and I was like, "Can I please beg the honor of your presence at the podium so I can get a photo?" And he was like, "All right."
What a fucking dick. I mean, if you're going to come in second, at least give some love to the guy who beat you.
I know. It's like, who wants to stand on the podium with nobody there? Like, oh, I just beat myself. Like what just happened?
Yeah.
That's just respectful to, I don't know. It's just common courtesy, but I don't know, but maybe he was just sad.
Okay. But you're going to do the worlds, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm not really committing to it, but maybe.
How much do you have to train? How much do you have to train to be at that level to compete in jiu-jitsu? Like, how many nights are you?
The cool thing about jiu-jitsu is it's a long game. It's like I've been training for 17 years and I've had breaks and things like that. I've had injuries. And I think it's good to like be training consistently because your body has to be in a certain kind of, you have to have grips, and especially with gi, you have to, like, you can see my knuckles are just thrashed, but like you have to have like be in shape for holding an isometric kind of strength. And then your timing has to be on and things like that. But as far as like technique, you're not going to learn anything new and take it into a competition. I don't think it takes like years to learn technique, right? And so when you start practicing new things, you typically don't want to use them in a tournament right away.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like you either know jiu-jitsu or you don't, and you can compete at any time as long as you've been training recently and you're in shape, in reasonable shape. But even if you're not in shape, you can go there and surprise somebody. I wasn't in the best shape. I just been in Italy shooting a wedding and not eating properly. I was eating pizza every day, and I came back and won the World Nationals. So like I think everyone should compete no matter where you're at, because competition is good for a few things, but good for learning mostly, because when you get beat, you learn.
Was Zuckerberg there? Isn't he a fucking jiu-jitsu boy? Yeah. Him and Elon were going to fight or something. And Joe Rogan was going to commentate, all for charity.
Tom Hardy's been training.
Yeah.
I think he's been competing. I was looking for Tom Hardy at the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
He's like a purple belt.
That's wild. Fuck, he was good in Batman as Bane, wasn't he?
Yeah. I just watched that motorcycle movie with him.
Oh, was it any good?
It was like the motorcycle riders.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was good.
Yeah.
I mean, because I like motorcycles. My wife, I don't know if she loved it, but I thought it was pretty cool.
I remember, this is my one claim to fame on Tom Hardy. I was at the Mandarin Oriental in New York, meeting someone for drinks, and Christian Bale and Tom Hardy were there, and they were about to go just down the street to the Batman premiere. So this was like, the last of the Batmans, right? When Tom Hardy, steals the nuclear weapon, and then Christian Bale drives it off into the sunset, and it explodes, and we don't know if Batman's still alive, right? Anyways, I'm standing there, and they're getting ready to leave to go to the premiere, and Christian Bale is like this high and on my shoulders, and Tom Hardy's like even a little smaller. These guys are ripped but tiny, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, how can I be big? Yeah, it's like, how can I be bigger than Batman?
Yeah. I picture Tom Hardy being like
a monster.
Yeah.
Yeah, you think of him as being he's a tiny guy. Yeah, I mean, he's absolutely cut, but he's not big.
If you want to act with him, you have to be smaller to make him look big.
Well, that's the thing. Like, there's all these stories. Yeah, there's all these stories about like directors trying to find like the heights and the right actors that match up, because sometimes like I've heard stories. So Kiefer Sutherland is a famous Canadian actor, and he's been great. He's in all these amazing movies, and then he was in 24, that famous TV series.
Yeah.
But when he was doing scenes with other actors, they would put him on a box.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because he didn't want to look he didn't want to be talking to another man at the shoulder. And obviously too, like you see movies with like DiCaprio and guys like this, and DiCaprio's tiny too, and they're always shooting like from down below. Yeah. Because they don't want to make him look like a midget not a midget, but you can't even use midget anymore. Like small people, I don't know, but anyways, these men that are 5'8" playing against 6'2". Like I'm 6'2". Like what? You're like 6'6", right?
No, 6'4".
Yeah. But it's funny, like just all these stories of like maybe meeting a celebrity, like or Tom Holland. I saw him the other day, and he's absolutely tiny. He looks like a child. Yeah, he's like 5'6" or something like that. But he's Spider-Man. Like he's bouncing off the walls, and he's super fucking fit, and he's running around. But he's just a young guy who's,
I think from jiu-jitsu, you learn to appreciate that size doesn't matter when it comes to like how badass you are and tough you are. Like the smallest guys in my school annihilate me.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like my professor is like 5'8", 5'9", and so I tower over him, and I'm heavier than him. He's like a lightweight, I'm a heavyweight, and I can't touch him. He just it's such an art that it's like the great equalizer, you know, because every body type has its advantages. And obviously, like, there's weight classes for a reason. So, but that says a lot about someone who can beat a bigger guy. But I don't know. I have a whole new respect for guys that are smaller than me, just because, like, you just never know who's gonna make you feel silly, make you feel like a small child.
The best photo shoot I ever did, portrait shoot I ever did. I was with Der Spiegel, a German magazine back in the day, right? And we flew to this really remote part of China, Guangxi province, or Guangxi, and we found this guy training, and he was a lightweight boxer, but his coach trained him in Kung Fu and Tai Chi. So he was all movement, and he was all footwork, and at this stage, he had won the Beijing Olympics. I think this was in 2008 or 2009. He came out of nowhere, won gold in boxing in the Beijing Olympics, and Dong King was like saying he's going to rep him and stuff like this. And he ended up fighting professionally for many years. But the thing I remember is I met him, I spent the day with him, I shot him, got some great shots, and then I started following him in his career because I was like, oh, I know this guy now, and he speaks some English, and he's super sweet, and we kind of became friends and very nice. And then in London, in the 2012 Olympics, he won the gold medal without getting hit.
No way. Boxing.
Yeah. I think he's the only one to ever have done that.
Video footage of him just dodging everything.
Yeah. I'll send you the name.
Is it just like one punch knockout? So he just...
No, he was tiny. Yeah.
No one could hit him. Like a ghost.
I can't remember his name. It's but I'll send you the photo.
You have this YouTube video. This guy goes in like dares people to try to hit him, and he's like just bobbing and weaving, and no one could hit him. He's like tiring them out.
Yeah,
and he's not even punching back. He's just like, oh, gee.
Are you gonna watch this Jake Paul and Mike Tyson fight?
When is that? It's coming up.
It was supposed to be a few weeks ago, but they postponed it because Mike Tyson had some spasm or something in his back.
Oh, really?
So they pushed it, and it's going to be like live on Netflix, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to see it.
I want to see Tyson just destroy someone.
I know. It would be very refreshing to see him just
annihilate.
Like, yeah, just like that uppercut and knockout punch from inside.
There's a great interview with Mike Tyson on the Joe Rogan podcast. And he was just saying like how much marijuana he smokes and how he needs to smoke marijuana to turn off the killer, because he was so trained as a killer for so many years, and he was so competitive and just ruthless that the only way he could come down and be like a normal person was by smoking weed to balance him out. And he now has a weed company. Like he's really into this now, and he was talking about this on the Rogan show. But I've seen these like Instagram and YouTube clips of him training, and he looks like a fucking monster. Like at 60.
Like recently?
Yeah.
So he's not smoking weed then?
Not in the build up to the current fight, I think. Yeah, he's got his killer back on.
That's scary.
Yeah.
I remember when he bit Holyfield's ear off.
I remember that, yeah.
I was just like, what kind of savage?
Yeah.
Just ripped his ear off. I was like, that was dirty. He could just come out of prison or something, and then like he had all these new techniques.
Yeah.
Prison tactics.
Yeah. Shower tactics. Yeah. Not easy. Yeah. So look, where can people find out about your photography skills and hire you or anything like that?
Nowhere.
You got a website? Come on.
My name, Mike Colón. It's just MikeColón.com. But my website's kind of, I don't know. I just don't really update it.
Yeah. And it's full of jiu-jitsu, which doesn't make any sense.
No, it's just like all my old wedding stuff. Yeah, my social media is Instagram is just at Mike Colón, and that's got more recent. Like I usually post some stories of recent jobs, but I'm not really good at social media either. But yeah, if you want to get a hold of me, probably DM me through Instagram or find someone who has my phone number and then call me.
I'll put your URL in and tag you on all this stuff too. But about the phone number thing, if there's a funny one, Christian Bale has this one line. He's like, if you have a problem with me, you should call me. And if you don't have my phone number, you don't know me well enough to have a problem with me.
That's pretty good. So I like that.
So it's like, so if you have a job, just call me. And if it's not a serious job, you probably don't have my phone number. So fuck them anyways.
Yeah. I mean, I always wanted to kind of go in that direction where it's like, I didn't, because nobody likes to market themselves. No one likes to talk about themselves. No one likes to like.
This is America. That's respected. Get an OnlyFans account. Start shooting your feet. Make $100,000 a month.
It's ridiculous. Like, there's so many coaches and it's just ridiculous. To me, I don't know. I don't want to be on social media because I get sucked in. I get this addiction. It's a place where I just get like all my time wasted. So, if I can only go on there and post and market myself and then get off, but then I think Instagram punishes you for that.
Mm-hmm.
They won't get your stuff out.
No, you need someone to do it.
Yeah. So maybe I should hire them out because I want to go in the direction of like no one can get a hold of me unless they know me. But then I wouldn't have any work because no one. If that's it.
There's Bill Murray, the famous comedian and actor. He famously doesn't have an agent or a publicist or a lawyer or anyone. He has a he has a PO box. Yeah, he has a PO box, and if you want to work with him, you have to send the script and the deal to him in his PO box, and apparently he checks it like once a month or whatever, and if he gets back to you, he's in.
And if he doesn't, then you just keep waiting.
Do the next movie or move on. Yeah, apparently he's like, because he loves acting.
Has he always done that, or just since he's been big time?
No, he's never had an agent. Like there's stories about him. Like I remember there was a thing about George Clooney worked with him on a terrible movie called Monuments Men.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, incredible actors, but terrible movie. And he was detailing like the process of how hard it was to find Bill Murray.
Really?
Yeah. And he thrives on it. He loves not being, and then he just shows up randomly. Like he goes to people's weddings and crashes them. He shows up at baseball games. He owns a baseball, a AAA baseball team, I think in Virginia or South Carolina.
He likes baseball.
Yeah, he likes baseball. But he's just super hard to reach, and that just made me think of that.
I want to do that so bad. I just want to be like I don't know. I feel like you said, like if the people that you should be working with, they should know how to get a hold of you. And if they don't, they shouldn't be working with you.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Well, you know how it's done in the entertainment world, right? Like, so you have a lawyer with an escrow account, and it's like, okay, if you really want to work with me, put 10 or 20 grand in with my lawyer with an escrow account. Show me you're serious. And then if we do the deal, the money comes to me. And if we don't do the deal, the money goes back to you. But if you're not willing to put the money in, then I'm not going to spend 6 months talking about a project with you.
Yeah,
and
you don't even have the money, maybe.
Yeah. So that's kind of how this business kind of works. Or else you just get sucked into like endless fucking proposals and people wanting to collaborate with you, and nothing ever goes anywhere because no one has any money. So it's like at least and you might be doing a TV show and the budget might be a couple $100,000 an episode, right? And you want to make an 8-episode series, so it's like $1 million, right? So like, well, if you want to make $1 million series, there's my lawyer. Put 20 grand in. It's an escrow account. It doesn't come to me. I'm not going to spend it. It sits there until the project gets started, or it doesn't. And it goes back to you. And it's such an easy way to call bullshit on people.
Because no one's going to do that unless they're serious. No one's going to like actually pay. Yeah.
It's about getting your time back.
Yeah.
Because I'm super creative and collaborative. I want to work with everyone. I want to try doing everything. But at the end of the day, it's just like, you got to make a living, right? So you got to like just choose to work with people who can pay you properly.
Right.
And not everyone can. And it's a nice way to differentiate between the people who can and can't. And sure, maybe you do a little thing somewhere for someone for free, or you do something because they know someone or you want to help someone out, fine. But if someone wants you to spend 6 or 12 months of your life doing something big,
if you think about it, if you cut out all of the wasted time that you spend trying to book a job or the back and forth with people that maybe were never going to hire you to begin with, then you can actually probably have way more time to do really cool work, and get it actually get ahead.
Yeah, it's true. Like, and one of the things I do is like, so I make my shows independently most of the time. So I have corporate partners. So I'll just ring all the partners, like the motorcycle companies, clothing companies, banks, whoever, and I'll just be like, guys, I'm going back, I'm doing this, the exposure, the kind of show, the tone.
Yeah.
you know, do you want to be in or not? And then I can usually raise enough money to do the show that way. So I don't even need collaborators in some cases. But other times, like I want to try to do things, but then you just come across so many people that don't know how to raise money. They don't know how to fundraise, and they're just so creative, but the business side of it's hopeless, right? And that's the hardest part. And you want to try to teach them, but you just don't have the time to put in to help everyone kind of get to where they need to be. So it's a tough business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, dude, you're like a very interesting guy. You know, I feel like a couple hours with you is not enough.
No. We'll do this again for sure. And I really thank you for coming by. I love your photography.
Thank you.
And the jiu-jitsu I read on your website, but I was surprised that you had...
Oh, you read my bio on my website?
Yeah. Or your bio on your Instagram, maybe? No, I went to your website too.
Like I had photos of me doing jiu-jitsu on my website. I'm like, no,
I don't think there is. I think I was just joking. But I did read it, and it was amazing to lead with that. And congratulations for being the national championship in your age category in jiu-jitsu. That's no joke.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It feels simple to me, but it's pretty cool. I mean, it was 17 years in the making for sure.
Yeah.
You take a lot for granted when you're doing jiu-jitsu, but just because you get beat every day by your teammates.
Yeah.
And so you could be having a good day or a bad day. I don't take a medal seriously because I know that those guys that I beat, any given day, they could probably beat me. But it's pretty cool. I showed up. I got off the couch. I showed up.
And on that day, you were the best. Yeah.
National champion.
Epic. So now we can go to this one. You can see the split screen so people can see we're in the same room because we don't do Zoom calls. And check it out. Great to meet you, man.
Nice.
Thanks for coming by.
Thanks for having me.
No worries. And watch, this is the best part of the production quality. Fade to black.
Boom.
And we're done.